Just a couple of guys, a couple of microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Odos? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. Here to stay, your most interactive NFL talk show there is. And drop some comments down below to help us prove that.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. If you're new to the show and you like what you see, because I know, we got some handsome guys up here, make sure you head over to YouTube. Help us out on the algorithm over there. Get us noticed a little bit more. Search us up, Football on the Know Show. Hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell to let you guys know when we go live. And as always, we are also on Facebook as well. Become a member, become a know-it-all. Let's kick it off, Jim.
Absolutely. First of all, we got to say shout out to Cody Raptor in the house with us tonight.
Hey,
Boom,
Cody.
He's there instantly there. Yes, the cheers to the Rays.
He hopped in real quick.
Oh, he did. I like the football emoji there, too, as well.
I like the burst off the line. I saw that, Cody.
Burst off the line. We like it. All right, so, yeah, it's been a controversial week this past week
Just
5.
a little bit.
Sometimes, we get
Just
through
a
these
little
shows and stuff to figure out some topics, talk about some of the teams. But I think we're starting to settle in and see what teams are really good now and what ones are the bad ones.
Some things went down this weekend.
They absolutely did. But let's talk about he's getting ready for Saturday. Nice fire. So let's talk about, first before we get to the roughing the passer calls and non-calls, let's talk about the game, this past a Monday. And your Raiders and the Chiefs there's a lot of different things in that. One of them was, the non-call that people have controversy about. But in that game, the Raiders went up big, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they had it, and it looks like they had the Chiefs on the ropes, and then a second half comes back, and the Chiefs were able to power through there, and there was a lot of missed calls and calls that were kind of ticky-tacky in that one. Like, I don't get the whole, when they're kicking, the Chiefs were kicking the field goal, that whole grabbing and holding call on the defense there. I didn't get that. That didn't make sense at all.
That was definitely like, hey, let's help the Chiefs out because we're terrified of the crowd right now. Mm-hmm. We made them so mad because that's basically where you saw it turn, where it all changed in terms of the refs calling the game. I felt like, listen, everybody can complain about the referees. Listen, they're going to every single week in every single game, they are going to make bad calls. They are going to miss calls. It's just part of the human nature that is the referees, and I get it. Some of them are blatant that they shouldn't get wrong, but they do. So first half of the Chiefs-Raiders game, they missed some calls on both sides. Let's just say what it is. I mean, they did. They didn't do a superb job, but they did an adequate job. And then the second half happened. But when the Chris Jones thing happened in the first, or was that the second half, or right before the end of the first half? I'm trying to remember.
It was right before the end.
Right before the end of the first half.
Yeah.
That call happens now by rule. That whole situation with Chris Jones landing on Derek Carr. The rule is, in terms of what the rule is, how the rule is worded, it was roughing the passer. And I know people are going to lose their minds over this, but it is, because I even posted in our group the very lengthy explanation by the referee who was at that game and said, this is what the rule is, this is how it's worded, this is why we enforced it. Because roughing the passer goes as follows. Anything where you hit below their waist, a blow to the head, or you land on them with your weight, with your body weight. That goes as roughing the passer. Now, people are going to, point fingers and say, hey, what about he stripped that ball before he landed on him? So doesn't that negate the roughing the passer? No. You would think it does, but no, because Derek Carr was in what they call a passing position. So he was acting as a quarterback before Chris Jones engaged with him. When he was about to throw, he gets hit from behind, and because he was in that passing position as a quarterback, you get full protection. That means nothing low on the legs, no blow to the head, and nobody landing on top of you. And that's why when Chris Jones fell forward, even though he had the ball, He landed full body weight on top of Derek Carr, and that's what led to the roughing the passer. So by rule, that is correct. They got that right. Despite what Kansas City fans want to say, that was the right call. Now, do we agree with it as football fans? No. Because if you know this, on this show, we've been debating, me and Jim both have been debating about this and saying, aren't they protecting the quarterbacks a little too much? Because back in the 80s, that same play, back in the 80s, that was golden. That was a strip sack recovered by the Chiefs, so they get the ball. Now, because of the safety rules and all these new rules that they've put in place, that's no longer a strip sack. That is roughing the passer just because he landed on top of him with his full weight. So, yes, they are protecting these quarterbacks like no other position, for sure. And it's making it extremely difficult for defensive players to sack a quarterback or to make a play on the quarterback, because we've also seen the instance of batting the ball, right? A player will come in with his arms up, go to bat the ball, and just because he's following through, it ends up glancing his helmet, not even hitting him hard, just by touching his helmet. Oh, that's a blow to the head. So, yes, they are protecting the quarterbacks too much as a fan, for sure. But I know everyone points to that play and say, oh, well, that should be legal. You're right in a sense if it was back in the 80s. You know what I mean? In the 90s. But we're not there. So because of the way the rule is written, that's why it goes down as a roughing the passer. Cody has something to say in the chat.
He definitely does. And he says, first of all, let's go to this part. That call on the Chiefs was pretty bad, but I at least understood the ref because of putting the weight on him. But the D tackle had the ball before they had landed, for a reason I don't believe it should have been called, but it's also not reviewable. Then he says, or maybe have the 15 yards go against their field position for the Chiefs because technically the roughing came after the turnover, just a thought.
So the way the rule is worded, no, they didn't get it wrong still.
Right.
Because even though he dislodged the ball before he landed on him, again, it goes back to
because the play was still in action, right?
Because the play was still in action, but because he was in that passing position, that rule as roughing the passer implies, regardless,
going to the ground,
that strip, the strip that he had does not negate the penalty. In other words, that's what it means. So because he landed on him, now if he went by him, like kind of shoved him and pulled the ball like he was about to do, it almost looked like he didn't want to land on him, but because he was more concerned about securing that ball, if he actually secured the ball and kind of just went off to the side and landed off to the side of him, it would have been a turnover easy. It would have been a strip sack. But because he landed on him, by rule, it's the right call, despite what everybody wants to complain about.
Yeah, and I think the problem is, again, with is just the rule itself. Again, they tried to do this to try and protect the quarterbacks, and I understand that and stuff, but you've seen it happen before. I think it was back when the Minnesota Vikings played the Packers in the playoffs, and they drove his shoulder down onto Aaron Rodgers and he got him injured and stuff, and that's where they threw
driving him into the
first
ground.
Time driving into the ground. And this is what kind of things they're talking about the weight driving on top of somebody. But now you're looking at the rule in literal terms now, because again, he's trying to pull the ball out, tries to retrieve the ball, and in because of gravity is falling downwards onto the quarterback, and his weight's got to go there because he's got one hand here. He can't exactly brace himself because he's going down, trying to also recover the fumble. So in doing so, he is allowing all of his weight to go down on top of the quarterback, which is by rule roughing the passer. So the play, again, the call is correct. I agree with Joe on that one absolutely as well. It sucks because, again, if you're looking at it, if you're a football fan or if you're following this and you see it in normal time, and like he said, even a decade ago even, that is just a straight-up sack fumble right there, and he's got it. He's got the ball as the fumble, and there you go. He's walking away with it. I think, again, where we have to take a look at some of these rules to where some have to be open to interpretation, and I think others are too literal in a sense to where it's being interpreted way too close and things like that. And we've seen that around the NFL with a bunch of different rules. And I think this one now, after this has gone down, I think that started to apply. But there's no doubt in my mind that this has only happened this week because of what's going on with the concussion things and Tua and the Miami Dolphins. The concussions issues, this and this, because the past 4 or 5 weeks now, this is week 5 now going on week 6, there was a bunch of tackles by defenders bringing down the quarterback in a whipping motion. We saw Travis Kelce even get tackled with a suplex. Where was the defenseless receiver, call like on something like that to try and limit this stuff? It wasn't until the issues with the Miami Dolphins and the quarterbacks going out because of concussions and injuries. Now I thought they went to the refs and said, hey, take an extra look at this call it if it's out there. I want you guys to, like they do, let's highlight it. Just like they said, let's highlight the defensive holding more and infringement and stuff like that this year. They did that, I think, this week now due to what's going on with the Miami Dolphins. And that's why I think you saw
I would
called
say that it's a combination of both of those things happening this weekend. Not so much about the concussion thing. I think that's a separate issue. But because of the Tom Brady sack that happened, I feel like both of those combined this weekend was more of a heightened, being able to watch these games as referees and knowing that they're trying to protect these players and enforce what is set in principle is what is set as rules. So you saw them kind of gauge more safety this weekend. But at the same time, like we could even, let's bring up the Tom Brady thing where he got whipped around and thrown to the ground. That's not illegal. That is a sack. That is perfect. That's exactly what referees want. The referees and the rules dictate that's how they want you to tackle or sack a quarterback. They want you to swing him down, regardless of how hard it is. It doesn't matter. What Grady Jarrett did to Tom Brady was perfect. It was the perfect sack. So for that head official to throw the penalty flag on that and try to justify the reason for it, it just didn't make any sense. By rule, that's exactly what they want them to do. So you penalized a player for doing exactly what the rule book tells them how to sack how to sack a quarterback, and you took the game out of Atlanta's hands because they were within a score to make that a real game. Maybe go into overtime, maybe win it. But because of that bad call, now that was literally a bad call, it ended. The Falcons ended up losing because of it, and unfortunately, they lost to a bad call. But with the Chris Jones situation, by rule, it is what it is, guys. It's the bottom line. The NFL has already came out with a statement and said they are by no way, shape, or form going to change the rules, what they have in place, because they believe that it's for the protection of the players. And I would just say for the protection of the quarterbacks more than anything. But so if you're counting on, creating a riot to get the NFL to change the rule, it's not going to happen. They are very strict about this. Roger Goodell has come out and made a statement about this. Even before the Giants-Packers game, he had a speech over there in the UK and basically announced it's like, listen, we are here to protect the quarterbacks, the players of our league, and nothing is going to change in terms of our wording of our rules. So if you're hoping that it's going to change, it's not going to change. Do we as fans, like especially old school fans, like me and Jim, we got to be classified as old school right now because in the 80s and 90s watching football, that was a legit play. And you would see quarterbacks getting hammered after the throw and there was no calls. Like, that's what we were used to seeing. Now that these new rules that have been implemented has literally changed the way defensive players have to play offenses and quarterbacks.
The NFL embraced it. They put out VHS videotapes of the biggest hits and tackles and things like that to music. You know what I mean? And they marketed it. You don't see that anymore.
That was NFL Films. Now they don't show that.
Yeah,
display
absolutely.
that.
Cody Raptor says it's tough. I don't hate the ref for the call like the Tom Brady call.
I
ended
do.
up being a big reason the Falcons lost this week. That's arguably one of the worst roughing calls I've ever seen before, especially on a huge play like that one.
It is because it's not a roughing call. That's the problem.
That's the thing too. That's why I think people have an issue again. You saw two different versions of it.
Right.
One is the right way. One's Tom Brady, and one of the other is not. But when you talk about some of these other guys, these running type of quarterbacks, I think even earlier this weekend there was a type of sack that could have probably been called roughing the passer, but they didn't. But I think the fact also, when you on top of it, it's Tom Brady. The league tries to protect him.
We
all the
know
time.
that Tom often complains after the play. Say, hey, well, he looks at the referees and say, hey, you're not going to throw a penalty on that?
Yeah.
He did this, he did that. And a lot of times he gets the call just because he complains. That's not how it should be.
But then even afterwards, he kicked the guy in the balls. And he thought maybe the flag was going to be on him, and that's what type of player he even is, too, and they want to protect this guy. And, whenever he gets touched, and he's been getting sacked and hurt a lot more this season than any, I think, in his whole career. He's really feeling the pressure. And he gets frustrated. He gets angry.
Cody just said that down below, too.
And he goes, even Brady thought the call on him was against for kicking the defender. He got sacked, learned it was roughing. But, yeah, he probably did, and he probably should have got one. They probably should have offset.
No, there shouldn't have been roughing the quarterback.
That's what it was. That's what I'm saying. I mean, but it shouldn't have been roughing because I watched it, too. I watched the play, and it's like, if you're saying this then why? That's what I'm saying, because I watched it 4 or 5 weeks now. There were multiple times that this type of sack, or even more egregious type of sacks, had happened. Nothing was called.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, boom, it's on Tom Brady, and then, boom, you got even last night's.
I saw...
that's why I just thought, even in some of it, was, again, now trying to protect players and the
But
quarterback.
I even saw, you can even... It's not saying you can't hit the quarterback hard, because I saw a sack this past weekend. A guy literally beelined it right to the quarterback, hit him right in the chest, and flattened him, knocked him back 5 yards. It was a hard hit, and there was no penalty. Why? Because it was a legal hit. He didn't hit him in the head. He didn't hit him below the waist. Hit him right in the midsection like they want. So it's not saying you can't hammer the quarterback, but it limits you in your target because you got to hit in the midsection. You can't hit his you can't hit his head. And then a lot of times when players go after the arm, sometimes they call that roughing too, because with the forward motion and everything. So it depends on the refs. It depends on, are the refs even on their A game? Because half the time they're not. And it's it also depends a lot. And this is why you see inconsistency with referees throughout the league, is because it also depends on what crew you have. Because the crew that Tampa Bay had was one of the worst ranked crews, if not the worst, in the entire league. So for them to, in a critical point of the game, not only get the call wrong, but because they got the call wrong, the Atlanta Falcons do not get a chance to come back and possibly win the game. You never know how it turns out.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that why there ends up being controversy about this and why everybody's talking about it, because it does change the outcomes of the games. And that's why it's always in my mind.
Sometimes.
Well, no, I'm just saying this is when there's a problem when everybody's talking about it right now, is because it might have. Again, people feel the Atlanta Falcons got screwed in that game.
Yeah, they deserved an opportunity for sure.
If the one game, the outcome of your Raiders and Chiefs game, all of a sudden, the Raiders, won or something like that, Chiefs feel like they, or whatever, they feel like they got screwed.
But that call wouldn't have justified it.
I think even though they also got bounced out because, again, that call on the field goal that the Chiefs missed was a BS call on the other side.
It was a BS call, but that second half was a lot of BS calls. You look at the referees and how they called that game. First half, Raiders only had 3 penalties. First half, only 3. Chiefs had, I forgot, around the same, 3 or 4, right? Second half, Chiefs only had 2. Raiders had 8. 8 penalties. Now, a couple of them, they were warranted. Holding penalty or whatever, false start type of thing.
Oh, they had 2.
That's fine. But the majority of those penalties, they were nitpicking penalties to basically keep the drives going for the Chiefs on their scoring drives. So one was definitely 100% the Raiders' fault. The guy that committed the what was it?
The holding that grabbed him?
Was it holding or horse collar?
I think, one, that was one other play.
Mask.
That was another one. He had the face mask, but then also had the
horse collar didn't. It was a face mask penalty.
Face mask, that's what
that one, you can't argue about it. That's what it was. It is what it is. But but throughout that second half, the refs were really kind of nitpicking against the Raiders to the point where it was so one-sided that it was hard for the Chiefs not to win.
Yeah, but the Raiders did get a couple of calls with the the pass interference though too that ended up helping the drive.
They
stay
were
sustained
pass
too. Which they
interferences,
were.
though.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. But they got more calls too. To I don't think it was just two.
Well, I mean
that the Chiefs had got that towards the end. But I'm saying those were bigger ones that end up helping out.
But
the
those were
Raiders, too, as well. I don't
legit,
think
so they're not
screwed,
turning points.
But anyways, when you look at it, though, other people have brought up even the fact that do you make this rule? I know they said they're not going to change it at all.
No, they're not going to.
But would it be an opportunity to make it almost like with basketball, like a flagrant, like there's all of a sudden a certain degree of roughing the passer to another to where it turns from like a 5-yard penalty to like a 15-yard penalty?
No, because when you get into those two-sided penalties, it's a big gray area. So, once again, what I wish they would do with all the rules.
Just throw them out. Let's see.
Honestly, with the rules, as long as they make them black and white and there's no gray area, it's not a judgment call. When you leave it up to judgment calls with referees, that's when you get into a lot of problems. That's when you get into situations where you're like, oh, some people will say that's definitely a penalty. Other people will be like, no, it's not. It's not even close. When you get into those gray areas where it's a judgment call, that's the worst for referees because now all the pressure is on them to make the right judgment. And we all know that, listen, they're human just like us. So a lot of times we make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes every single game. It's just how severe is that mistake. So I wish somehow, some way the NFL could look at all the rules and make them more black and white instead of having judgment calls being in place.
We've got Paul Matty in the house with us tonight. He says human error is part of the game. Absolutely. So there you go.
We just said that, a few minutes ago.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
You're right
that's
on,
what
Paul.
It is. I mean, that's why you got to just live with it sometimes. But it's, again, when people are watching it and they're able to put it in slow-mo nonstop, and that's what I mean.
That's the other thing, too.
You look at it. That's why I feel like if you looked at it even in real time, you see him come up with the ball, possibly it's a fumble. And then when the flag is thrown, when they slow it down, then they tried to justify it by him trying to brace himself, and that's where it gets ticky-tacky, from people at home.
Well, I mean, even when the
refs are seeing it for what it is.
But
bang, bang.
But even when you slow motion that, it's
you can still see
it's still the roughing and penalty.
I look at it that way too.
But my thing is for Chris Jones, if he and I honestly think I think he could have pulled this off because he stripped it he stripped it so early. Listen, Derek Carr is not. Yeah. He's not even half the size. You know what I mean?
No, yeah.
I think that Chris Jones, after he stole that and he was falling forward, I almost wonder if he could have nudged Derek Carr just enough to fall on the side of him. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, yeah.
Because I know he's falling forward, but I think almost he could have kind of just nudged him to where he falls on the side just enough to where it's not full body on top of him, and that way. It would have been a turnover.
Yeah, and you know what? It's split-second thinking. A lot of times, when people think about
He's got to go to kung fu training,
right? But when you see things like, say, all of a sudden, you see something that happened in an accident. Like, what could somebody have done better? If split-second thinking and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
then the moment hits you like that, and you're in that moment. Are you really going to react the way that you think you might, because of the adrenaline that's kicking and this and that? That's what I'm saying, though. You might say, all of a sudden, say, like I said, it's like a car accident or something like that, say something. Will you in that moment react that fast? You think you might, but then when you're there, boom.
You can.
So that's what, does he have it in the back of his brain, really, that, I might rough this guy,
because
get called for roughing, I have to.
Yeah, because mentally as a defensive player.
I think he tried to brace himself that little bit, but just couldn't do it. But now you said even from now, I mean, do I try pushing the guy? Maybe that from further moving on, that's got to be in some of these guys' minds.
Well, it should always be because the rules are what the rules are. You should know them as a player, and you're going to have to implement your game that way. So even when you go in to sack a quarterback, you can't land on him. You just already know that. And whether you grab them and swing them around, you know that you can't land on him. You know that you can't take his legs out. You know that you can't hit him in the helmet. So you have to play your game as such. I mean, you see it all the time. Look at Max Crosby that night in the first half. He had 2 sacks. He didn't commit a roughing the passer. He did what he had to do, but still got there. So, I mean, it's like you can. It's just you have to have that mindset going into it. You can't play the game like you want to. You have to play the game the way the rules are.
I hear you. You know, and people are going to debate the rules all the time. We know it, Joe. Back when we
And
did
it's
say
not
we're
gonna-
old school guys,
Yeah.
even in the 80s, people hated the refs. You know what I mean? Paul probably knows. You know, a lot of people hated them. Even
I
too,
actually
back then.
think that the refs in the 80s and 90s were way worse than the refs today. And people will probably argue that, like, oh, how can you say that? Well, because if you were like in the 80s and 90s when we were growing up watching football, there was a lot that would let go, that they just would let happen. I mean, there was a lot of pass interferences that should have been called, plays that would have been called, and they just weren't. They would just let them go at it, like physically craziness. Like I'm talking corners like, Darrelle Revis, one of the best Hall of Fame corners ever. And he would do this little kind of like this hold thing where he would run next to the receiver and he'd always have a handful of jersey. Not always, but once in a while, if he knew like this receiver was pretty good, he would break it out and just kind of hold it and run with him and nobody would ever call him for it. But it's like back then it was played so much more physical. And the referees, Jesus, if you think the calls are bad now, back then there was a heck of a lot of games decided by refs.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was the wild, wild west back then. But let me tell you, it's something that isn't very crazy and stuff like that. I'm telling you about my friends at Mohawk Honda, the way they take care of you, Joe. It's one big family there at Mohawk Honda. We talked about them all summer long, and the hot deals and the inventory that was all over the place there up at Freeman's Bridge Road. And now it's getting a little chilly. Today it was a little warmer. Then we got a little bit of like an Indian summer a little bit, but it is fall. It is getting colder. You got that crisp morning air in the morning, especially. The beautiful foliage. I was driving down I-90 today and was looking at the beautiful foliage that we have, Joe.
Leaves are turning.
It is fall. That's right. And seasons may change, but one constant is the buying experience at Mohawk Honda. It's glorious. They're greeted with a smile, and they'll treat you with respect. The new vehicle inventory is ramping up, too, with pilots, passports, Ridgelines. Remember, this is the best time ever to sell your vehicle. They buy cars, and in some cases, that you might be able to get more from them than what you paid for it. There you go. That's right. It's not just another advantage you get from the number one volume dealer in the capital region. You know, it's just the way Mohawk Honda takes care of you. Go see General Manager Greg Johnson and his team. They're out there to do everything they can do, get you in the car that you want, the price that you want to pay every month, and what you deserve to drive out of there a happy customer. Make sure you guys check them out, MohawkHonda.com, or you can check them right out there on Freeman's Bridge Road. See the inventory right there for yourself. Tell them that Football on the Nose sent you, and Mohawk Honda, wherever they go out of the way to please you. That's right, Joe. All right. I just want to bring up one quick thing, too, from that game, too, especially like we saw this after the fact, and it's making headlines now, so let's just touch on this quick and maybe have some clarification with this one, Joe. But Davante Adams now is charged a misdemeanor assault after pushing the media member here, Joe.
I'm sorry.
How about that? So after the game, he was upset with himself, especially because the catch that he should have probably had, but he tapped his feet a little too early, and then the second step went out of bounds. And then for them, the final play is, again, it's got to be a timing route where Renfro and him collide, and then they both fall on the ground, and the ball goes sailing over. Obviously upset, slamming his helmet to the ground. They go to leave, and he nudges a media member that's right in front of the way the tunnel is. And now he apologized right after he went onto the stand, went onto the podium. Was like, hey, at first I want to say I'm sorry to that guy. I was upset, but still. This happens, which I thought might happen because the way people are scumbags now. They want to try and get money from whoever they can. And, he got nudged, so now he feels it violated. I have to sue this guy. And now this is what we're facing now, Joe.
If this is true, right? Like, you get charged with a misdemeanor for this, that means when I play flag football on Sundays, everybody should be charged misdemeanors because we all shove each other to the ground. So, I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. Listen. He had media credentials, right? Okay, that's one thing. It's a privilege to have those credentials on the sidelines. So if you're media, you're supposed to stay out of the players' ways. You're not allowed to cross in front of tunnels whenever you feel like, or walk in front of the player like it happened here. And it's like, I'll say this, security failed their job because their job is to keep the tunnels clear when players are trying to exit the game. So, one, the security's at fault. Two, the Nimrod that walked in front of Davante Adams, it's his fault for And when you watch the video, if you guys get a chance to see the video, I mean, I don't know how you haven't by now, but if you haven't seen it, watch it, because when he goes to briskly walk in front, I mean, literally right in front of Davante Adams, like inches away from his chest plate, that he had his head down and was kind of ignoring the fact that he was walking in front of Davante Adams, and that's why he ends up getting shoved. So it's like you knew what you were doing, and it was almost like premeditated on his part. Like, that's what it seemed like anyway when you watch it. And it's like, oh, this was the whole thing. I'm going to get pushed by Davante Adams, who makes a lot of money, and then I'm going to go to the hospital, and then I'm going to go to the police and file a report and see how much money I can get out of him. Guess what?
Possibly. It could have been, but again, like you said, if let's look at the picture again, if you see it here, just like you said, there's security off to the side. The guy is right in front of where the entrance is. And we know this by going to Albany Empire games and being part of the media and stuff like that too. Security there makes sure that you do not block those ways for the players to get in. Whether you have a media pass, you're allowed to be down there to take the photos and not, or whatever. You cannot block which ways they get in and out of the locker room.
That's right.
And that guy happened to be right in front of
He
them,
literally-
right where you need to just walk
And
right
he
in.
walked right by another security guard.
Yeah,
Like, what
and
are
the
you doing?
security guard's sitting there right there next to him and just allowed him to be there.
Clearly,
And,
they thought their shift was over.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Yeah, and game's over. Here you go, buddy. See ya. And but it is appalling now that he has gone
crazy.
to
So crazy.
to the lengths of get to the Kansas City Police Department to press charges now, which again Joe had mentioned that are probably going to get dropped altogether just because of those points there. The Raiders can bring up even the fact of that the security, it was mishandled by him. This guy,
He
who's
knows
a media
better.
member, should
He knows
already
better.
know, you shouldn't be there. You
Right.
know this. It's the rules that you get when you go to these things. So now this guy tried to do a money grab. Don't know if he'll be successful at it or not. But
And,
now
here's
people have seen him and they know probably who that guy is now, and he is not going to get it, on the fields anymore. You know what I'm saying? So he might have just lost his job altogether.
Here's the thing about it all too is like there's people commenting. I saw on social media, and they're always saying, "Oh man, he's going to get a huge purse. He's going to get $2 million or something like that, crazy, just to get him to shut up or something." Shut up for what? They not only does Davante Adams have video evidence of what he did. There's rules in place for media to stay out of the way. You know what I mean? For the security guards to keep the tunnels cleaned. They got the video. And they got the rules in place for every NFL stadium. So it's a win-win for him. Like you're going to bring him to court. It's going to get most likely thrown out. And if it's not thrown out, you're going to get what? What do you expect to get out of this? 10 grand? 5 grand? Like you're not going to get much. So, I mean, it is a money grab. It's absolutely ridiculous and asinine, but this is the kind of people that this is the problem with society right here.
Yeah.
Stupid idiot.
There you go.
But I mean,
exactly. That is the problem.
So I mean, listen, if you listen to us this far, you like what we got to say, you like what to hear. Do us a huge favor. Help us out over on YouTube. We're trying to grow this community up. Search us up, Football on the No Show. Hit that subscribe button for us. Please help us out. Hit that notification bell, let you guys know when we go live. And as well, you can also follow us on Facebook. If you're not a YouTube guy or woman, you can head over to Facebook. We're also there as well. Become a member, become a nodal. And it doesn't stop there. If you want to take us with you along your drive, along your commute, you're going out with the boys soon, you want something to listen to, some football talk, anywhere you get your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, we're there. Make sure you hit the follow. If you want to be more interactive, like I said before, come join our live show.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got definitely, if we bring up live show, we've got a few lined up in a little bit. We're going to put out some flyers for that and let you guys know, post the events when you can come see us live in person again and meet us and hang out and have some drinks and stuff like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Live on location.
Absolutely. But I want to say shout out to No Donnie's in there with us.
No Donnie
He says,
go
go
ahead.
Cardinals, fire Cliff. And there we go. So he's going to segment.
I had a feeling that was coming.
Yeah, he's going to segue us right into the next segment, and that is the coaching hot seat that we have here. We got to look at it now. There's a few out there, Joe. So what coaches are on the hot seat? He brought it up there. Let's go right to the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury, a guy who came in. The Cardinals had already had a different, what was it, Josh
Rosen.
Josh Rosen already, and then he comes in, has worked with Murray before, so he goes, I'm going to draft him number one overall here, grab him in there, and it seemed like it was working out, but now this team, again, only goes so far as what Murray can do for them, but they lost some things over the offseason, at least on defense.
Right.
On offense, they still kept some of the wide receivers that they had, but got rid of a few. And not having Deandre Hopkins because of the PED use seems like it's been a bit of a factor for them as well.
Absolutely,
and just
been a factor.
not looking like a really good team right now. A team that looked like they were kind of on the up and coming and stalled real quick.
Yeah, and it's a very complex equation, if you will, because you look at their injury report right now, they are severely injured. I mean, they almost look like the Giants. They're a little far off still, but they're almost there. Offensive line is decimated by injuries. Their quarterback of their offensive line is their center there, Rodney Hudson. He looks like he's not going to be available again this week, amongst others. And then on top of that, you bring up the suspension for DeAndre Hopkins. No one player makes a team, but it shows you how important DeAndre Hopkins is when he's out there on the field, because not only is he the go-to guy in the receiving corps, but he's also a guy that pulls coverages over to him to give space to guys like Rondell Moore, to guys like A.J. Green when he's healthy. You know what I mean? Like, he's also another guy that's hurting and missing. And they got some nice young talent behind those players. But still, I feel like because of the injuries at the offensive line, because they don't have Hopkins on the field, I feel like that's a big part of the reason why their offense is at least struggling. Defensively, up to this point, they struggled mightily in the first 2 weeks. And now it seems like now that we're getting into week 5, going into week 6, it seems like the defense has shown flashes of being something that we thought they were going to be in week 1. A lot stronger, a lot tougher of a defense. They've shown flashes, but they still haven't yet been able to put it all together on the defensive side. So they're closer defensively, but they still got a little bit more to work on. But I feel like that's kind of the combination that they're still dealing with. And until they get Hopkins back, you know what I mean? That kind of will give them another spark. And maybe we'll start to see the Cardinals that we kind of anticipated on seeing in week 1.
Right, and this is what you're talking about. When you talk about defensive schemes, when you have a guy like that, they're going to scheme to stop him. So you don't have somebody like that. Defenses aren't really intimidated. So what's your next weapon besides Kyler Murray? You've got James Conner right there, which stop the run, which everybody has been able to do. He hasn't had over 55 yards at all this season because they're concentrating on it, and that's what they're saying. Because again, they're not really afraid of what Kyler Murray can do then either. So basically, what they're telling you, we're going to stop the run, put it all on Kyler Murray. We saw what happened when he was getting pressured in the playoffs last year, and it didn't look very good. People kept note of that because it's on a national arena right there. Boom, you can see it. They teed up on that, and then that's where you got an issue with it, and that's why they're struggling here. But Cliff Kingsbury, again, you're trying. People have questioned his scheming and stuff like that too, as well. The way he's running his offense and stuff. That people saying in this league you can't really do what he's trying to do with what he has here, and it's not working because again the defenses will see it and they can scheme up against it and stop it. And try to do your fast-paced offense. They can tailor themselves to stop what you're doing here, and now it seems like he's failing at it.
I would agree with it, but not necessarily, because last season they were super successful running that offense. And he does make adjustments. Like, he's one of those coaches that will make adjustments depending on what they're having a hard time doing. So I kind of disagree with the ideas that some people have about his offense, that you can't do it, it's not working, because if that was the case, it wouldn't work from day 1 to now. Would have no success. And then he probably would have been fired last year. But it does work when you have all your pieces in place, when you have a healthy offensive line, when you have a Hopkins teamed up with some of these young wide receivers that are up and coming like a Rondell Moore. It can work and it will work. But they're going through a little bit of a, they're kind of being dragged through the mud right now because of the injuries, because of not having Hopkins, because they're just not all in sync and they don't have their players out there. That's why they're really struggling. I don't think it's necessarily all Cliff Kingsbury's fault. Some of the blame does go on him, but at the same time, too, you got to take it for what it is. The Cardinals are decimated by injuries. Defensively, they look better than they did week one. Let's see if when they get Hopkins back, when they get their offensive line healthy again, let's see then what kind of Cardinals team they can become. Because I feel like once they get their weapons back like Hopkins and they get their line back healthy and they get back on track, I feel like you're going to see a much more competitive and a team that will be much more successful that way. Mm-hmm. So for me, to fire Cliff, I think it's a little premature. And has he screwed up before with decisions? Sure, but no coach is perfect. But I still feel like Cliff Kingsbury is a halfway decent head coach to the point where you got to give him the benefit of the doubt right now because of what the team is going through. Now, if you were to say the team has been healthy through 6 weeks and still nothing is happening, we're still losing games, we're not winning the games that we're supposed to win, then okay, we have a discussion to maybe perhaps move on from Cliff. But I feel like let's see how the rest of the season goes before we kind of hit that eject button on Cliff right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what other names have been brought up, especially in the headlines, what's going on now with the talks about when he hit the podium, when people had asked Ron Rivera, what's the issue? What's the difference between you and the other teams in the NFC East and why you haven't had success? He said the quarterback, and that started a whole beast nest of his much that they came out tonight and they said that Ron Rivera has talked to Carson Wentz, and officially they've made up. They're in good graces now.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Now they're going to win.
He said, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So everything's better now.
So,
But he's not wrong, though, I think, though, too. Again, Carson Wentz has been labeled this because it is what it is. I don't know what it is that even, he's had success at times and stuff, but it seemed after a certain time period, he just is just prone to making bonehead mistakes and just can't get it done.
He doesn't seem to get any better with time. Mm-hmm. He is not a fine wine, in other words.
Right. And he keeps getting a shot at a quarterback spot, which is crazy, right?
But it's because of the lack of quarterbacks that are available. I mean, honestly, you think about it. This is why on this show we say that, and everybody kind of knows the general consensus about this, is that quarterbacks are the number one most important position of your football team. And this just shows you why. Because quarterbacks don't grow on trees. You can't just pick up a quarterback when you need one and say, oh, we're good now. Because you need to develop them out of the draft. You need to develop them and get them to that stature of being one of the better or elite quarterbacks. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't always work. We're noticing nowadays, like the last 5 to 10 years, you're seeing more quarterbacks coming out of college that are way more advanced and ready to go right in the lineup and sometimes have success. Mm-hmm. Before, it was a crapshoot. Where, like, no matter who you picked, there was no guarantee that they would even be a starter worthy. But nowadays, you're starting to see more quarterbacks be successful right away, but that still doesn't mean they're going to be good enough to get you over the hump and win games. So quarterbacks are the real good ones are very rare to get. And when you have one, you got to hold on to it. Washington has learned a very, very tough issue with quarterbacks. They've changed quarterbacks, the last 3 years? Mm-hmm. And Ron Rivera, being the head coach, out of those 3 years, why didn't they go into the draft out of those 3 years and go for one of these quarterbacks that were in the first round? Why didn't they go in? And don't get me wrong, they do have a young kid in Taylor. Well, I say young kid. He's not that young. He's like 30 years old. But he's been a backup pretty much his whole career. But Taylor Heineke, he's ready to kind of at least be the duct tape or the bandage to kind of take that quarterback spot. Mm-hmm. And we saw him last year be not only competitive, but he's also come back and won games for Washington. So The question,
I think he had the locker room too, and this is why we made the question about this trade in the first in the offseason.
But the question still remains, like you and me had this offseason. Why would you go and trade for Carson Wentz when you had a Taylor Heineke who honestly is better than Carson? There's no reason to. So, I mean, honestly, they should have given the keys to Taylor Heineke and say, hey, we're going to run with you for this season. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but we all do know in the front office they're all getting prepared for this next draft to go and get, hopefully, their future quarterback. That's where it should have been 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. But now here we are after trading for a quarterback, picking up a quarterback, trying out Cam Newton. That didn't work. Like, they're at a point now where they've gone so long without a true starter that it's not only hurt the team, but now the organization is being laughed at this point because it's like, what are you guys doing? You still haven't found your franchise quarterback because you're more worried about adding defensive talent, more worried about adding more Don't get me wrong. They needed more receiver options, but still, it's like it looks like they're building from the outside in to that quarterback position, and that's the wrong way to build a team.
And that's the thing. You come out of the gate here, Ron Rivera, they were first out of the division with only a 7-9 record. Then the next season, 7-10, surprisingly, with Taylor Heineke, again, like you said, coming in where even at first, that defense didn't look very good. Young gets injured early, and he's out for the season. Now, this year, this is the time to hit the reset again. And like we said in the offseason, why go and trade away picks when you pretty much had your guy right there, your bridge guy? What's Carson Wentz going to do for you right now that it was worth giving up a pick or so to get this guy in? What, to make a playoff run, to make a Super Bowl run? Do you think you were that ready for the Super Bowl run? I didn't think they were, but I thought they were decent enough with Taylor Heineke in the helm right there.
Gave
Plus,
them a
again,
shot.
like I said, he had the city, he had the
players
too, the locker
room,
room too as well. So that was nice. Now you go and throw Carson Wentz in where he doesn't have chemistry with the wide receivers, doesn't know the group at all. Yeah, it's a whole reset there for them. And now you look stupid, especially now when you're calling what is wrong right there out in front of everybody out there in the public. And now people are looking for calling your head.
And that's why this is justified. Ron Rivera being questioned now. Ron Rivera, what's going on? Why haven't we gotten any better? It feels like they've gotten better talent all over the place. They've gotten better defensively. They've gotten better at receiving. Curtis Samuel now coming along. Their young youngster there. Is it Naomi Brown or Diami Brown? Something like that. He's coming along nicely as of last week, and they got some talent around. They got something going on, but they're still failing at the quarterback spot, and that's why Ron Rivera is being questioned now. 3 years into it, you got to wonder, listen, you've had 3 years to improve this team. I don't care how much talent you've put around on defense and sprinkled throughout the offense, but we still don't have a quarterback, and we're still losing games. It's time to move on from Ron.
Absolutely. And there's some other ones out there. One of the premature ones, I'd say even too, just because it's his first season, but Nathaniel Hackett out there and the way the Broncos have looked. Is it more a problem with that, the fact that they got Russell Wilson and he's playing the way he is right now, or maybe a combination of both? I think at this point it's got to be both, because you're seeing some of the things that really mistakes that a guy like Russell Wilson, Super Bowl champion and almost a 2-time Super Bowl champion, and has been there, has seen these things before. He's known as one of the upper echelon quarterbacks. Had a guy sitting there wide open in the end zone right there when they went for it right there to the end zone to just seal up the game. Totally didn't look his way at all, and then it's done. The game's over, just like that. And it's constant things that he's done throughout the games, bonehead mistakes that he's doing, and then on top of it, compiled is the way the coach is handling the game. He already told himself in the media and everybody out there after the first game, I think, or second at least.
Second game.
When they went and they grabbed somebody to help manage the game right? Hired somebody to do that for him, and they're still screwing it up. Still messing it up.
Exactly.
You still don't know. And you're looking at the sidelines, and when you look at somebody that's in over their head, he looks like he's in over his head.
Yeah, when you're constantly have your nose in your playbook and you're not even watching the game, like you're just trying to figure out what to do next, there's an issue there. And nothing has progressed. Nothing has gotten better over the first 5 weeks. It just seems very stalemated. And this is kind of what me and Jim both expected from the Broncos, despite what the media was pushing, and a lot of the Broncos fans were even saying, "Oh, we're going to win the division. We're going to go to the playoffs. We're going to do things." Doesn't look so good now, does it? Because we warned you that by changing a coaching staff, Vic Fangio, your real good defensive mind, is no longer there. He was your head coach, gone. That defense, despite having talent on that side of the ball, was going to go through a little bit of a change. Different defensive coordinator, different defensive scheme that they have to learn. And they are a decent defense, but they're not Vic Fangio style defense anymore. So that's hurting. Also offensively, people thought by adding Russell Wilson that was going to solve their problems, but they still have a average offensive line protecting Russell Wilson, kind of very similar to what Seattle had, average to below average type of line. So he's being rushed out of the pocket often. And you bring up a point of him, is it his play or is it Nathaniel Hackett's offense? Is it his play calling? Because Russell Wilson hasn't played in this offense before. So he's learning it as well and trying to adjust to it. He's not being asked to run as much as he was in Seattle. So I wonder if it's kind of capping his potential in Denver. It's a big question mark. We're never going to know the answer to that, but it's possible. And then for Russell to, when we see him throw the ball, it's not that he doesn't have any zip on the ball anymore. It's really questionable. Like his accuracy is almost like gone. Guys that are open down the field and he's overthrowing them or throwing it out of bounds when they're down the sideline, or those issues are mechanics. Those issues are, I just don't know. I still think Russell Wilson is a good quarterback. It's awfully weird on how he went from being Seattle's god to now that he got traded to Denver. It looks so strange to see him struggle this bad.
Right.
So I don't know if it's offensive scheme wise. I don't know if it's Russell Wilson deteriorating as a quarterback because he is getting older. And the crazy thing is we made fun of the contract that Denver signed him up and gave him an extension, a 5-year extension, and it was ludicrous of a contract. He didn't even do anything for Denver. And you're going to give him a huge contract? Now, Denver fans have a right to be not only irate and upset at the organization for, one, giving him a long-term deal, but two, that much money, and that takes away from your cap space for the future. So you're actually hurting your team. You've already handcuffed yourself to this quarterback now until he retires.
And, Eli made the joke about they should have paid, the punter and stuff. But in that last game, you should have probably paid the kicker too. And maybe the punter and the kicker share the money, at his contract too, because that was one of the worst games, I think, ever of all time. I think Mike Tackett had posted out there too. It's like, holy crap, man. Just a game. I don't mind defensive games and stuff like that.
Games.
I like it. But that, again, that was just poor offense on top of it too. It's just terrible.
Yes. Because even though it was a defensive game,
it was trying not to win.
Both offenses were so poor at sustaining a drive. It almost was funny because it's almost like neither offense could get past the 50-yard line, and they were punting all the time. Or when they did, it would end up. It was the field goal game. It was terrible primetime TV for the NFL. That is definitely a black eye on them.
Yeah,
because I
tell you,
I want to know.
Amazon games have not been good.
No, they haven't. And I want to know.
I feel bad for them.
The scheduler, is he held accountable for some of these primetime games and how bad they have been? This year, I would argue that this season has been the worst primetime game scheduled in NFL history.
Man, it could be, yeah. Because I think so too. Because there's been some matchups that haven't even made it to Sunday Night Football. You know what I'm saying? Look at it. This one. Even this week. Look at this.
The Raiders and Chiefs were like the best one yet.
Right. Well, this is coming up Sunday night. You've got Dallas and Philly, which might be good now because they're close in record. But right before that, 4:25, you've got the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. How is this not going to be scheduled as a Sunday night?
Man, how is that?
They're a
not?
remake of last year's,
Yeah.
big game.
Yeah,
Like, hello.
right.
I
Absolutely.
mean, that was primed up right there to be a sweet game, and they leave it at 4:30. Like, I don't get it, dude.
Jesus.
Is
Yeah,
America's game of the week
yeah.
or something? Like, I don't get it. But
Hey, drop the comments down below.
Absolutely.
Let us know that you're still alive out there, everybody. Drop some comments down below. We will react to you. We will give you shout-outs. If you got any questions, we're here for you. If you want even to rant,
#know-it-all.
if you want to rant about something that's bothering you from this past weekend, we already went over. Don't get to the roughing calls. We already been over that. But if you want to rant about anything about your team, maybe something that's bothering you about your team, what they're doing, what they're not doing, make sure you're dropping it in the comments down below.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, share, follow, all the deal.
Another one, too, I guess it's tough to look at this one, though, because of the Indianapolis Colts here and Frank Reich. They've been on that same wave, I guess, that you're looking at the Commanders. They
you're
are
right.
right there. You figured well, they're further along, really. They're further along. You're just saying they were a quarterback away. So they tried Philip Rivers.
They really
Didn't
are,
work.
too. It's
Since
crazy.
the Andrew Luck experience went raw and bad, that's what it was. It's like, there you go. You got Philip Rivers. That didn't really work. You got Carson Wentz. You've got,
you bring up Philip Rivers. Actually, Philip Rivers is the most successful quarterback they've had.
Since,
when he was
right?
in there for 1 year, they were winning games.
Yeah.
They were a playoff team.
Yep.
They are basically a quarterback away, but now it's turned into not just quarterback problems, but receiver problems. They're still not there with the receiving core.
You can't get the depth, and that's
they
what we were wondering
definitely
why they
missed
didn't
T.Y.
attack
Hilton.
that too, though. Like again, you knew you weren't going to have T.Y. Hilton again. He's on the, was going to retire or whatnot.
I'm surprised. Like we knew this past offseason was going to be crazy, right? Whether it be trades, whether it be free agent signings. I am really surprised that the Colts didn't go after for a lot of these free agent wide receivers that were out there, like a Juju. Like I get it, he's not a speedster. He's not going to beat you down the sideline for a deep ball, but he's a good receiver. Like I'm surprised they didn't bring him in and bring some others in to maybe
we even
bolster
brought up
this,
the fact
this
that say you had
core.
Michael Pittman and stuff there too, right? Why? What would have hurt you if you brought in Julio Jones before he had signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Nothing.
He already knows
Nothing.
Matt Ryan. You're on the same page together.
Nothing.
It would have just made sense. You would have paid nothing for him, and you would have had that veteran right there to help you out.
I mean, not only that, let's look at currently. Odell Beckham is out there. You need desperate help. You need someone to pull the coverage away from Michael Pittman Jr. You need another guy out there who could be your number one receiver and take some pressure off of these other younger receivers. So bringing in Odell, like he's looking to join a team from the reports, what they say, mid-November. So basically right before trade deadline. And that's when he's going to be picking a team. Why aren't the Colts bringing him in for a visit right now? Because this is one of those teams that are in such dire need of receiver that it makes all the sense in the world. I don't care what Odell has done in the past. You need help now to at least try to save something of your season because you've been struggling mightily up to this point. Bring in Odell, and just like you mentioned, like in the offseason, Julio Jones, even after the offseason, Julio Jones was available for quite some time. The Colts, of all teams, should have brought him in and signed him because at least that would have given you another threat.
Yeah, a little bit, something.
And,
whatever he has left in the tank to offer, absolutely.
I can't believe the GM for the Colts did not make a more conscious effort to go out and get some more players at receiver.
And so with what's going on with the Colts, I mean, some people have questioned whether Frank Reich should come back again because, again, if you keep swapping out quarterbacks and that's not working, is it really the problem of the quarterback? Is it head coach that can't get it done? But if you look at the team, the way this season has been, though, so far, they're sitting there at 2-2-1. Again, probably should have beat a lot of these teams already here, especially the Texans. They could they should have had a better record.
Right, they could have been 4-1.
But even right now, they're competing in this division still because of the way the Titans have been lethargic. The way that the Jaguars had played well, but then again, let one slip against a division rival here, which is funny because the Texans, I think, record against the Jaguars, most recent, they're like undefeated in the last, so many years. So we should have known to pick the Texans on that one, Joe. I mean, it's like, damn it. But again, that's where you're at. Yeah, 2-2-1 and 2-3. You're right there in this division, so it's still early. So to call for his head right now, I think, is a little early. But you're just still looking at this team and saying, when can you get it right? And compile it on top of injuries too that they've had. Jonathan Taylor not being able to play too. And
Last week, yeah.
Yep, absolutely. But then once he goes in, you and I talked about it. We said, well, Nyheim Hines has got it. Blah blah blah. To it.
He gets
boom,
hurt.
It banged right away.
It was right away before the
Right away.
The
And you're like,
crazy
are you
thing-
kidding me?
And the
that's
crazy thing
what's-
is, I had a bet with Nyheim Hines involved. Right, everything on my bet won. I won everything but Nyheim Hines leaving, so I lost the bet. However, kudos out there to FanDuel, by the way. Because of Nyheim Hines not even really playing in the game, just got injured right off the get-go, first play, they actually refunded my $10.
Oh, really?
So I got to use that money again.
Nice.
But I will say this. If Nyheim Hines stayed healthy in that game, I win that ticket. I'd have no doubt in my mind I would have won that ticket. So kudos out there to FanDuel. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to play yet again. And it's the craziest things that we've been seeing this year. Crazy injuries, and and this happens every year, right? Like it's not a surprise that we're seeing injuries like these happening to starters, to big time players, but it's happening so often that the NFL, we were kind of like pleading that the NFL would add another bye week to the season, because if you're going to add another game, you could easily add another bye week to where you're still going to make your money every week, but at least the players or teams get 2 bye weeks to kind of take a break and maybe heal some wounds.
Absolutely. So, I mean, a lot of people have said maybe he should be on the hot seat. One other guy I would bring up.
All right, so
Go ahead.
Just so I can touch on Frank Reich real quick.
Touch
We
on-
we mentioned Phillip Rivers. So when Phillip Rivers was a quarterback, they had T.Y. Hilton.
Right.
Michael Pittman was he might have been a rookie or a second year player, and so they had T.Y. Hilton though. Like they had something to work with. They had Jack Doyle was more prominent in the offense, and they had something going. That was when they had success. The last time they had any kind of big success, they made the playoffs and all that. So that shows you that it's not a question of Frank Reich's coaching. It's not a question of his offense and how he calls it. It's right now. It's a matter of players
execution.
It's a matter of having receiving threats. He's got one. He's got a rookie in Alec Pierce who looks like he could develop into something nice, but he's just not there yet.
Yeah.
So they need more talented receivers, and then beyond that, it's hard to judge Matt Ryan because everybody picks on Matt Ryan. I still think Matt Ryan is a good quarterback, but he is this. He's not a mobile guy, and you have to protect for him in order for him to distribute the ball. I think that happens more often if they get those other receiving elements that are much needed. Until that happens, the Colts offense alone is going to struggle. And that's really what's killing them right now.
Yep, I can agree with that one.
So, do not fire Frank Reich. I still think he's the right guy. We just need to get more players for him.
Absolutely. And next, again, I don't think his job should be on the line, but I'm keeping note of it, and I have been. It's got to be Brandon Staley for me because, again, so many times you can go for it on 4th down, and it bites you in the ass before you say, dude, no more. Because, again, after this past weekend it happens, you got your own players calling you out, about it and stuff. Now there's an issue because, again, if I'm a defensive player and I'm watching the offense, and say you're staggering and you can't do it, and then you're going for it, and you're like, what? They're going for it on 4th down right here? Like, oh, yeah, coach is going for it again. I'm like, okay, well, they better make it this time. Boom, and then they don't, and you're pinned up against your goal line again.
Yeah.
And you keep doing the same thing over and over again. As a defensive player, I got to be like, dude, I just got off the field to get you on there. And then now you're going 3 and out, but actually 4 and out. And now I'm stuck here again. And now you're relying on me to stop it because of the decision you made. I don't think so. And this is where I think it's going to eventually maybe cause a problem with the locker room. And mainly, like I said, on the defensive side of the ball, where sometimes you got to just forget the analytics and bite the bullet and punt it away. Because I think analytics, numbers are easy to try and mathematically look at. It's like, you know that guy, they call him, there's a reason why this happens too, book smart. This guy's book smart, but common sense, he doesn't have any. And this is where, when you look at 4th down, I think sometimes you need to use a little more common sense when you're looking at it than your book smarts when you look at your analytics, because you got to look at variables altogether. When you look at people going for a 4th down, what's the percentage? Well, that's due to many different types of players of all walks of life, of all different levels, and different teams. Like Joe and I had talked about it off air in our prep. If you look at the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid going out and then 4th and 1, and then you say you're looking at it maybe even the Jets or the Giants going for a 4th and 1, I think I'd rather probably make it go with the Chiefs on that one. Or say even during that week, say the Chiefs do it, the Packers, the Chargers and somebody else, but then even the Giants do, and then, the Texans go for it, whatever. But all those good teams made it, and the percentage kicks up higher that they actually were able to turn it over and do it. Yeah, that makes sense because they had the better players to execute the 4th and 1.
Right.
It doesn't relate in this altogether situational football altogether. That's why analytics in football, you can only take it with a grain of salt. I think overall, again, you can't be book smart. You got to be common sense smart.
It comes down to fundamental coaching, really, what it is. And we talked about this off the air too. Like, it's about your coach too. Like you see a lot of new age coaches now. They do go by analytic stats, and they kind of reference that a lot. And they say, well, the analytics say this, that we're going to be more successful going on 4th down than not in this similar situation. But you have to take in consideration your team that you're coaching and where you are situationally. Just like we've seen numerous times. Look at last year. The Chargers had an opportunity going up against the Raiders to make the playoffs and to kick the Raiders out of the playoffs. And they went for it at their own 20, I want to say, if I'm correct, 4th down, and I think it was like 4th and 4, something like that, at the 20-yard line. Yeah. Their own 20, by the way, not the Raiders' 20. Their own 20. And they went for it and didn't get it. They turned the ball over. Raiders are not only already in the red zone, but they're already in field goal range. So even if they go 3 and out, they're getting points
right there.
For not doing anything.
You automatically are giving them points pretty much, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is, like, I think coaches, like new age coaches or younger coaches, whatever you want to call them, that do refer to the analytics a little too much. It's got to be about feel too. It's got to be about being smart. Like Jim mentioned, if you're in your own territory, I say let's just say if you're at your own 45 and back towards the touchdown, if that side of your field, if you're in there, you got to punt. You have to punt. I don't care how good of an offense you have. I don't care, how amazing your receivers are, what have you. Your offensive line is stout. Don't take the risk of not getting it, because now you're turning the ball over on your side of the field and you're giving it to the opponent. They already have great field position. They got to move 10, 15 to 20 yards down the field, and they're already in scoring range and field goal. So, for the Chargers head coach, there's situations where you definitely shouldn't go for it. Now, if you're past the 50-yard mark and you're in the other team's territory and you want to be that aggressive, go for it. Can't fault you for that. But for what he's doing, he's literally doing it so deep into his own territory that if you turn it over, you're basically just giving up points right away. Even if you stop the team, they're still in field goal range.
Right. And you're not really surprising anybody either when you're going for it. They're kind of just like, all right, he's going to do it again. Here we go. Let's stop him now. And that will feed into momentum because, again, that's one thing. Basically, when you're putting analytics into things, you're taking feeling out of the whole thing. And so that basically fights against the argument that this team's stealing momentum from that team and this and that. Momentum's a real thing, and players will tell you automatically right there that momentum, you do feel it. It does change. It is a real thing.
It's hard to get back, too.
Yeah, and momentum changes the game, and that is a variable that analytics doesn't put in. You know what I'm saying?
There's no measurement for it.
The home crowd is there building momentum, too, as well, especially if, say, the Chargers, again, they play at home, but it's not even a home crowd that can't even stand behind them. So you've got the crowd against them anyway, so all of a sudden it's a turnover on downs. The crowd is really ripping and roaring. They've got the momentum, cheering. You've got the defense trying to figure out what's going on then, too, and trying to get a stop. You lose all momentum. And that's a big factor, too, that's not played into those analytics.
And the crazy thing is despite the issues that they've had thus far, they're still 3-2.
Right.
They're above 500. Now, what's to say that if he changes his mind on some of those 4th down conversions, tries to get them, if he punts, how much would that have changed the game for them to be 4-1, for them to even maybe be 5-0? I mean, they are that close to all of their games. Those 2 losses that they had you could easily point the finger and say, well, the coach wanted to go for it and we didn't get it, so we let the other team in. We let the other team get ahead, and then we just couldn't catch up after that. So just like you mentioned off air, too, about like Keenan Allen even tweeting out in frustration about the coaching decisions to go for it on fourth down in your own territory and not being able to convert it. And you're just giving the ball back to the opponent already in scoring position. So I feel like, if he keeps going down this path of being so aggressive, regardless of where you are on the football field, and you're losing games because of it, you could very easily lose this team, and you could lose this locker room to the point where they don't believe in you, they don't trust you, and this team is a very good team. There's no reason why this team can't pursue the playoffs, and heck, can't pursue this division.
Right.
But it's going to be very hard for the team to not only play to win the division or make the playoffs, but also they got to play against failing on fourth down conversions and trying to make a comeback.
Yeah, basically, you want to put it in perspective real quick, just to put it dip it in a bud. Points for, they've got 122. Points against, 136. And they still have a winning record. So what does that tell you? That means they're still getting outscored by people. Why? Probably because you're getting pinned against your end zone right there, and then letting them have the ball right there to give them the points and to edge out some of these wins here that could have been.
So I mean, you bring
like
him,
I said,
you bring him up. It's a conversation that you kind of have to have. I know Chargers fans out there got to be super frustrated, and it's like he's not going to get fired this year, not even at the end of it. But if this continues into next year, it might, even though I still think he's a good coach, I don't think it's a matter of it. I just think his decision-making is a little off, and it's leading to more losses than it is wins. So if it continues, then that conversation is going to be had.
That has been great now. And then if you have the players that you have, it looks like great on paper, but it doesn't translate to the field, then that looks really bad on you, and that's what it might turn up to. So, again, if they start losing more with the talent that they have, that just in turn looks bad on the coach. Because you see what the Giants are doing with Brian Daboll, where they have nobody. We talked about them riddled with injuries throughout the offseason, and even now still, they can't even get their starting wide receivers on the field at all. And they're winning with guys like Richie James and Sills and stuff like that.
Hey, the Patriots
Michael Johnson
did the same
just
thing.
got a catch too. Which, the Patriots have done it too. So that's the thing, though. Yeah, so
you can do it.
Coaching scheme, get it going. You see, they've implemented the Wildcats.
All I have to say is Saquon Barkley is having one hell of a season.
Right?
You're going to have to re-sign that guy.
I know, right?
It's too important. Too important.
Absolutely. So there you go. That's our coaching hot seats and stuff. And that all becomes, we're talking about it because looming of the fact that Matt Rule had just gotten fired. We talked about it last week about Matt Rule potentially being on the hot seat and getting fired. And it happened literally the next week. And
I will say this too. Like, I don't think I ever clarified Nathaniel Hackett.
Okay.
And yes, it's early, but we've seen this before. We've seen coaches get fired not even completing their first season. We've seen it happen before. He's on pace for that. I know it's premature, but this team is playing so poorly with his style of offense and not being able to get wins in his first season. They might say, okay, well, it's his first year. Maybe we let him ride it out. But I already know that the front office and the new ownership is not going to be too keen on continuing the losing feats into next season. So he is going to be put under a microscope from this point on the rest of the season. If he continues to lose, I would not be shocked in the offseason if he is let go and they move and they look elsewhere.
Like they say in Walmart, beware of falling prices. Beware of falling losses here. With the Broncos. Yeah, I mean, and it's funny that you bring up maybe a one and done. The guy that's not going to be the interim coach for the Panthers, Steve Wilkes, that maybe people might remember that had 1 year stint as head coach with the Arizona Cardinals, and then fired right after, and then Cliff Kingsbury comes right in, and now we're talking about Cliff Kingsbury possibly being laying an egg here on this one. So looking at that, we had talked about maybe Matt Rule being out, but then also replace Baker Mayfield. And it's so funny, too, now that he ends up being injured now.
Yeah.
So you can use that as your segue to move him out of there. But now
PJ
you
Walker's
got
gonna
PJ
start.
Walker there, buddy.
Yeah.
PJ Walker, a lot of people liked him with the XFL and stuff, in AAFL that he was in, looking really good. But now he's at the helm. If he does better, gets it to these guys, that would be amazing.
I think he will do better because he's already had some success when he did get an opportunity to start. And the funny thing is, I looked up, Sam Darnold is still not completely healthy. So he hasn't been brought back from the IR yet.
Right.
But I think when he does, I think he'll get his opportunity once again to take over.
You would have to.
And you would have to, because we've already seen what Baker hasn't been able to do thus far. That's what it's been. There's been no success at all with that offense with Baker as the starter. And maybe when Darnold is ready to come off IR, hopefully next week or the week after, make the change. Let's see what Darnold can do for them, because we know that he had limited success. He was 5-0 last year until he got his injury, and then we didn't see him again. So the big question for him is injuries. Can he stay healthy the rest of the year? So if he's able to do that, maybe Carolina can turn a very poor beginning of a season to a strong end of it.
All right. Talk about a strong season and a strong upbringing. I'm going to tell you about a strong company, and it's Colorize. Joe, why don't you tell everybody about Colorize now?
Oh, now I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah.
Not Jim. I am
not.
telling you
Joe's gonna
guys
do it this time.
about Colorize. The paint professionals. Colorize is a locally owned and operated Benjamin Moore dealership with locations in Clifton Park, Niskayuna, and Queensbury. Yes, they focus on the outstanding products from Benjamin Moore, but as an independent dealer, they also have access to almost everything paint and finish related, serving everyone from the professional to the do-it-yourselfer. That's right, you guys right out there. Colorize is eager to help and are capable of making your next project go smoother. Colorize, the right paint, color, and advice from local professionals who care.
That's
right. Colorize are your people. You want paint? They got you. You want a specific color? They got you. Those guys are amazing.
That's
so
right. If you don't have the name, you have say, I want the color on this right here. This brown
you gotta
bring it in.
yeah,
they'll match it for you, just like that. Colorize, mycolorize.com to find out more. They got a store opening up near Junior Zone, our favorite places there in Troy, by Troy up Hudson Valley area. They're going to be opening a brand new store. I saw it the inside again. Looks nice, before they get started. So
Fancy.
That's going to be cool. Absolutely. So, all right, Joe, you know what time it is? It's time to do our pick segment.
Oh, boy.
Time to get the music queued up. Oh, yeah, buddy. Let's get this going. It's doing better for us. Last week I had 11 wins. Joe had 12 wins. So
we
there we
crushed
go.
it last
We're
week.
above 500 now,
It's amazing,
Joe.
right?
We got to look and see whatever Mike Tackett got on this one, see how his wins and losses were.
I don't think
he was looking bad.
I don't know if he calculated his week 5 picks.
Okay, but there we are here. I only have one on Joe. It is a tight race, but again, with a year like the way this has been, it's going to go down to the wire. It's going to go all over the place. So who knows what's up with this. But again, Thursday night, we've been telling you about these great, amazing Amazon games. I think the first one, they started off with the Chiefs and the Chargers, which was the best one. But
I got some news about Amazon.
What's up? Let's hear.
They added another analyst onto the panel.
Geez.
And guess what? Everyone's going to love this guy because not only does he have a comedic feel, but he's also a former player. It's none other than Marshawn Lynch.
Oh,
Marshawn Lynch is going to be added to the panel.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be amazing. For comedy reasons only.
Oh, it's got. Well, is he gonna talk? That's
he's
gonna. A guy that doesn't talk to the media, but when he does, though, he even had his own show. I think the Marshawn show.
He did.
Like that. That was comedic.
It was cool.
Yeah, but oh my goodness. But even a guy, maybe it's something to try and even help his image too, because the last we know about, he had that car accident. His car demolished. Didn't know where the heck he was or even how he got there. Craziness. There had to have been Skittles all over the ground.
He was drunk so bad. I saw the whole video. He was so beyond gone, drinking, it was insane to watch that video. He didn't even know where he was. He didn't know who he was. They even asked him several times, "What's your name?" He was just gone.
Beast mode.
Beast mode. Where's your ID? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm only here so I don't get fined.
That's
Like,
right.
well, you're going to get a fine, buddy. Here, blow into this. Here we go.
Yes.
Anyways, but tell you about the great Amazon games they've had. Like I said, they've been terrible. So now let's just compile it again and let's get Washington and Chicago. Washington and Chicago. Who wants it more in this one? I mean, this is going to be tough. Again, the way we've seen what Washington's
man.
been playing, they let one slip.
bad.
Chicago, again, up and down. We're not sure what to see out of them. It is at home, so
Yep.
it's tough. This is going to be a tough game for me, man. But you know what? I don't know. Even though a lot of people are hating on Justin Fields and what he's doing, I like maybe his upside better than like a Carson Wentz. And Chicago always plays better at
100%.
home here, Stu, still. So I think I'm going to roll with Chicago in this one.
I'm still trying to find. Oh, here we go. Week 5 picks.
There you
Yeah,
go.
he didn't.
What does he get?
He didn't update it though. Like,
Oh, okay.
like you know how he usually says like green check for a win and red
Yeah.
X. He didn't
Well,
update
we
it.
could probably go through it quick. What do you got?
So
What do you
he had the Colts,
Yep,
Packers.
that's a win.
You got
That's
the
a loss.
Packers.
Yep.
Bills, Browns.
Browns is a loss, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Vikings, Lions.
Vikings won, right?
Lions lost.
Lions lost.
Seahawks, Jets.
Seahawks lost.
Yep.
Jets won.
Buccaneers, Titans.
Buccaneers
Both won.
Won.
Buccaneers has an asterisk next to it.
Yep.
Jaguars, Niners.
What does that mean? Jags lost. Niners won.
Cowboys, Eagles.
Cowboys won. And Eagles won.
Yep. Bengals, Chiefs.
Bengals lost. And then the Chiefs won. So
And-
he went 10-6.
So
10-6.
I think this is maybe he did. It says season record 28, 35 and 1.
28, 35, and 1.
Does that sound right?
28, 35, and 1. Yeah, that sounds probably right. So now he's at 38 and 40.
I found it.
4 and 1. I think that's what it is. Quick math. I'm not good at it, but I
No,
tried.
we are not. This
There
is
you
why
go.
we'll never do a math
38, 44, maybe 41 and 1.
All right.
Something like that. There you go. Yeah, because
we
he'd
go.
have to be the opposite. So it'd be 38, 41
Okay.
and 1.
All right.
There you go. Anyways, we got Mike Tackett's record. He'll probably tell us later on this week. I broke my pen. God damn it. This is one of my favorite
Come
pens.
on, man.
All right. So
Better
I
than
went
that.
with the Bears, Joe. Who
You
do you
want
got
to
in
do
this
the
one?
Bears?
You gonna go with the Bears?
Listen,
You gonna go with Washington?
I won't go with Washington for the rest of the season because I can't stand Carson Wentz. And honestly, this offense is putrid. It's terrible. Despite Carson Wentz's brief successful moments with the offense, like you look at the rookie Jahan Dotson starting to take off, De'Ami Brown and Scary Terry is actually not as, he's not as scary as he was last season because they got other weapons to distribute the ball. So, despite all that, despite the I feel like Washington's defense is still kind of underrated. I like Chicago at home with Justin Fields at the helm. They got David Montgomery back finally, healthy and ready to go. So I got Chicago in another terrible night game.
In a close, exciting game. We should just say it, Joe. Come on. All right, here we go. Sunday now. We've got San Francisco 49ers and the Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh.
We talk about hot seats and coaches and stuff like that, right? At one time, I had, Kyle Shanahan on there and stuff. But
You did.
You know what? But
Yeah.
because his terrible calls and different decisions. If he stuck with Trey Lance and he did not get injured, we wouldn't be looking at the 49ers, I think, where they are. I think they would be towards the bottom still.
I don't think so necessarily. I still think Lance still has plenty of development to go, but I feel what he adds is that mobility scare with him, kind of like a Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? And because of that, I feel like up to this point he would have grown with the offense. Maybe he would have been a little bit better up to this point, and maybe they start to get things rolling that way.
And then on the flip side for me of this, when I was talking about that, the Atlanta Falcons and Arthur Smith, I am shocked and surprised in how well he's been handling this team as a head coach. At first, when he got hired, I was kind of like, man, that happened quick because he was there under Matt LaFleur there for the Titans for a while.
Right,
Then all of a sudden
right.
he stepped up to be the big guy and even asked for help. It's like, hey, I need some other guys too to work with me. What works great as a play, blah, blah, blah. That's when you really started to see Derrick Henry come right out on his own finally and be that monster that we were waiting for when he was there under Matt LaFleur. They were just keeping him bottled up. We got to see him get explosive there with Arthur Smith, and now Arthur Smith moves out of the coordinator spot into a head coaching spot, and now looks pretty good right now. What he did last year with Cordarrelle Patterson, and now you've got some other weapons on top of it with the talent that they have, which is a little less than what they had last year. I think they look really good.
It's crazy too because you bring up Cordarrelle Patterson. He doesn't. I don't know if he's going to play or not. He didn't play last week.
No, and I was surprised they played as well without him. That's why I was definitely picking against him
Kyle
last week,
Pitts
too.
was also out. Drake London was out. Like they were missing a lot of people, and they were still able to not only be competitive, but they had a shot, and the refs kind of took it away. But we're trying to get over it, but it's not so easy. But what I'll say this: the one thing that I'm disappointed with Arthur Smith, though, is there's going to be times where you have to stick up for your players. And at his press conference after that game, they asked him about that Tom Brady penalty and everything, and he said, "Well, I'm not gonna talk bad about the refs or anything, and I just we're gonna move on to next week." Really? Seriously? Grady Jarrett makes a great play, and you're not gonna stick up for him. You're not gonna show the team that you have their backs no matter what. Like I understand. Hey, you might get a fine, big freaking deal. But there's going to be times where you need to stand up for your players when it's time. That was the time to do it, to really get your players fired up for next week, and you failed to do that. So I'm kind of questioning, maybe X's and O's wise, he's doing an admirable job. He's doing a decent job, but this is the time you got to stick up for your team. And I think he failed to do so at that presser. I think you should have called out the refs and said, hey, maybe not by name, you know what I mean? But you should have hinted towards it at least and said, hey, listen, there was a really bad call in that game. I'm not going to say names, but I'm just saying you guys know what I'm referencing to. We should have had an opportunity to have the ball back and possibly win.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's look at the San Francisco 49ers, Atlanta, playing tough again, too. But for me, again, looking at it, Kyle Shanahan against his old team, I think just overall, when you look at the personnel, I just got to ride with the San Francisco 49ers on this one.
Yeah, I mean, they are definitely the favorites in this game. But something that kind of bothers me is, as of Wednesday, as of right now, you have Nick Bosa with a groin injury, not playing. You have Javon Kinlaw not practicing. You got Eric Armstead not practicing. Basically, your whole starting D-line may not be available. And other players, like a corner, like a linebacker's not practicing. So that kind of concerns me a little bit. I know it's midweek, and we won't really know for sure if they're going to be available or not. But with some of the injuries that they have, they don't just kind of get over them overnight. They could end up reoccurring if they do play. So with the Niners and Kyle Shanahan, I think this is kind of like a trap game for them going over to Atlanta. And Atlanta is completely healthy. They're getting Kyle Pitts back. They're getting Drake London back. Everybody on their team is ready to go, despite maybe one linebacker that they have. So I like Atlanta's chances in this one. I think they're going to be hungry for it. It is 9:30 a.m., everybody. It's really early. So San Fran has to travel all the way across to the pond. I feel like that's going to affect them a little bit, and maybe they feel more fatigued than Atlanta.
Maybe they go the opposite way. What if they travel and go west and then even farther past Japan and go the other way?
It's still far.
Yeah, I know.
There's no easy way to get there.
It would be better that way for them. I don't know.
New England at Cleveland.
New England at Cleveland. Joe, take it away with this one. New England, Cleveland, what you got in this one?
New England, listen, we talked about this last week, too, about the Patriots starting to come on defensively. I mean, really playing well. They played great against Green Bay.
That shocked me last week.
I mean, how could you not be shocked, right? But they've played admirable. Bailey Zappe coming into his own, the third string quarterback that they drafted. Amazing.
New England does it again.
But this is the thing, and we've talked about this before. This is what the Patriots do.
Yeah.
They find that there's certain niche type players that fit their scheme perfectly. Bailey Zappe by no means has a strong arm. He doesn't. He has a weak arm, but he's deadly accurate, and that fits this Patriots profile of a quarterback. So he comes in. Not only is he smart, he's got the accuracy. You know what I mean, and he's a quick delivery.
Yep.
So he comes in, does his thing, and the Patriots are looking really good right now. They're visiting Cleveland, which This is interesting because Cleveland is kind of one of those up and down teams for me. Defensively, I think they're pretty good. They did pull off a trade this past week.
Yeah, they did.
Getting Deion Jones. I don't know how soon he's going to play. You would think that he's going to play at least a little bit this week because he's still got to learn that defense as a whole. But definitely a guy that can make an impact. And then Cleveland offensively. I'm sorry, but Jacoby Brissett, he's successful sometimes, and then there's other times you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? The accuracy might be a little off. The play, he overthrows people. So until Deshaun Watson returns, you're going to see a lot of that throughout the rest of the season until they get the big man. But in Cleveland, New England's playing really strong. I got faith whether it's Bailey Zapp or Mac Jones gets to come back. So I'm going to go with New England on this one.
All right, here we go. Yeah, and that's the thing. When you look at the Jacoby Brissett situation, and then on the opposite side, you look at the Cowboys and what they're doing with Cooper Rush, and they should be looking at the Cowboys and look at that playbook and say, hey, this is what we got to be doing. They've been running the ball no matter what still with Nick Chubb, and stuff like that too. But that's what they've got to do. Keep it balanced, but don't make the mistakes, and that's the difference between the Cleveland Browns and what the Cowboys were doing. Browns, again, too many mistakes by Jacoby Brissett in game-winning opportunities that just had failed them and not been able to turn out those wins because they've been close games that they've been losing.
For sure.
And the Cowboys have been able to get those games.
Also, the New England Patriots, we talked about their defense, how they're getting better. They're not only better, but they're actually really good against the run. They only allow opponents to rush the ball. I think it was like 3.7 yards on average. But the real deal is, New England, Bill Belichick is making this game an extra emphasis on stopping the run game, putting all the pressure on Jacoby Brissett to make plays by himself. So this is going to be a true test for the Patriots defense going up against the run game of Cleveland.
Yep, I'm gonna side with Cleveland though, just to be different, and who knows? I like the aspect too that maybe Jacoby Brissett goes back to where he started, and face off
beats Bill
Belichick, right here. So
he's gonna be fired up for it.
Onto it, so why not? Yeah, so it might be cool. Maybe he knows a little something about it. All right, the New York Jets now and the Green Bay Packers. Packers let one slip. How bad would it be for the Packers if they lose back to back against two New York teams who aren't supposed to be winning right now? I mean, look at the Jets and what they did even last week. Yes, I understand, too. The third-string quarterback did go in and stuff, and that's when things really turned around because, it was a close game until that happened. But you got to give them credit, too, for even getting that hit and now forcing, Teddy Bridgewater to exit the game.
Right.
But they turned it on. It seems like they're buying into their head coach, too, as well, because you hear him on the podium saying this is what coach preaches. Yep. And even after that victory, we're not celebrating right now. It's just any other game. Let's keep moving forward to the next game, which is good. But the Jets, Green Bay Packers, Green Bay's got to be licking their wounds on this one. And every time out of these big losses, like especially week one, the losses that happen, they come back firing. And this is what we talked about the past couple weeks, Green Bay's offense. Right when we were picking the games, I said they're gonna come out strong, start putting on the points, and then in the second half, it seems they take their foot off the gas. Every week this year, they've done it. To take their foot off the gas, and they even did it all the way as back far as that playoff game last year when they had it, and they just seemed like they were cool because coasting. I'm cool. I'm Aaron Rodgers, man. I'm high. I'm peyote right now. I'm just chill. We got this still. Yeah, and, we're just chill. And then by the time it gets to the end, you're like, oh, shit, I got to actually sober up and do something. You're out of it. And this is what happened with them. Thinking, and that's what's funny. You've got an Aaron Rodgers who's talented, doesn't have a whole lot around him right now, should still win. But on the other hand, you've got Daniel Jones who has literally nothing, and they just beat you. So that's sad. But Jets, I don't think they still have a shot here at Green Bay. They make it close, though. Again, Green Bay is going to put on some points. Jets might make it interesting here with the corners that they have, too, right there. So I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers here just because they're at home, and I don't think they want to be embarrassed back-to-back.
Well, of course they don't want to be embarrassed. But here's the thing is, the Jets are playing really good football right now. They're buying into what Robert Saleh has to preach, and the defense is buying in. They're balling out. The offense with Zach Wilson has gotten better. Despite, Flacco kind of holding it down from him until he came back from his injury. it looks like they're starting to get back on pace again from what they did late last season. So the Jets are looking good, but now they got to go into Green Bay, into Wisconsin, which is where the Packers play really tough football. It's a tough place to play. The cheeseheads are going to be out in full gear. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, this is going to be one of those statement games for Green Bay. They want to make an impression and say, listen, we're not pushovers. So whatever happened last week, it's not going to happen this week. Our defense is going to get after Zach Wilson. Our offense is going to apply pressure on this defense. We're going to put some points up. Let's go, Green Bay. So Green Bay for my pick.
All right, there you go. Just like that. Jacksonville Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts, Joe.
Jesus, I don't know how
Holy
to pick
crap.
it.
This
I don't know
division is
what's
just
going on
crazy,
here.
bro. Again, my mind tells me instantly that I'm saying the Indianapolis Colts should
Right.
take this one.
Yeah.
Jacksonville looked good early, but then you've seen even the pressure that's been able to get to Trevor Lawrence, and he didn't look good even last week. But the week before, I think he got sacked like 5 times too. So they're getting pressure to him. So will the Colts be able to do some of that and even out this game? It's going to be a close divisional game here. But again, I still think that they have the opportunity to turn it around. They were my pick at the beginning of this season to take the division. The Colts need to be able to win this game. I'm going to go with the Colts here.
Okay. We got the Colts at home. Jim's got them winning. Jacksonville, listen, they're starting to come on. Like last week, they didn't play so well. They didn't do enough to win. They kind of got beat up in that game. But the Colts didn't come away unscathed last week either. They have a lot of injuries, and it's kind of concerning because you don't have Jonathan Taylor as of yet. He still didn't practice. Nyheim Hines is also in concussion protocol. Looks like it's limited. Maybe he might be able to make a return. But then you got some bigger names, like a Stephon Gilmore didn't practice. And what it sounds like is it's just a rest day. But other players like Quentin Nelson finally practiced in full. Yannick Ngakoue missing, Kwity Paye. So there's some defensive players on there that are very impactful that we're not quite sure if they're going to be full go come Sunday. Jacksonville looks a little bit healthier right now. It looks like there's nobody injured to the point where they're not playing. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's going. I got Jacksonville going to Indy, and yes, beating the Colts, and the Colts are now kind of like the laughing stock in the NFL.
They would have to be after
because,
this, right?
honestly, I don't blame Frank Reich. I just think it's a personnel problem right now. They just don't have enough in the arsenal on offense. I think that's really all it is. And, yeah, they are also injured too, so that kind of plays a part. But I think that's why they're struggling right now. And I think after this game, it continues to struggle until they're able. I don't know what Indianapolis is doing. Why aren't you guys bringing in receivers? Why aren't you guys trying to kind of spice things up a little bit here? There's other players out there that can play.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and even the Bills are dropping wide receivers as we speak and stuff like that. So I mean, if the other teams that don't even need them, you're getting guys out there.
I mean, if you're the Colts right now, I want to take a look at something real quick.
Sure.
So the Indianapolis Colts, we know they need a wide receiver. We know guys like Odell is out there. I know maybe he might not be able to come right back to playing shape right now, but the Colts right now have $7 million under the cap, right, to spend. So why aren't you bringing in at least Odell for a visit, and then maybe bring in some other guys like Andy Isabella was on the waivers.
Yeah,
I thought for sure like a team like Indy would have put a claim in just to get him because that would have been a big boost for them. But there's still other players out there in free agency that they could bring in that's going to help this team. The Raiders this past week, they signed Albert Wilson. That's a guy that could have came in and helped out the Colts. You know what I mean? Anybody. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out why the Colts haven't been too active, in free agency. I think they need to be.
Yeah, the Giants just did the same thing too. They brought in whatchamacallit, used to play for the Bills. One of their wide receivers. Can't remember his damn name. Let's see if I can find it here again. But
not Crowder, right? He's
No.
injured.
No. And they're not even bringing it up here.
Trying to think.
Yeah, I want to say it was another Wilson or something like that too.
I know Cole Beasley was out there too early in the season. I think honestly, if Cole Beasley went to a team like the Colts, he wouldn't have retired because he would have started. I think that was the reason why he retired.
Yep, and then now we've got the Minnesota Vikings and the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins banged up here
Jesus.
too. again, with what's going on, the protocol with the concussions again, I'm sure Teddy Bridgewater, unless he can pass something, or they might hold him out here. I think that's depending on if he's in or not. But the Vikings, again, they're one of those teams, too, that has, again, been very lethargic. And still, when you look at their record, you're like, this has got to be the most secretive, 4-1 team I've ever seen, because I'm like, they feel like when I watch them, they play like garbage. And they're in first. How is this happening? Despite how bad Kirk Cousins has been with the weapons that you have. This is crazy.
Justin Jefferson is having a career.
Yeah. He's doing right for him. But Vikings, Miami, again, Miami's at home. It would be good for them. But Minnesota, I think, right now has the better quarterback if the third stringer is in for Miami.
That's
and they
true.
Can't get
That's
it done.
what's happening.
So I got to just ride with, I think, Minnesota at this point for that one.
I mean, I think how could you not? It looks, and this definitely depends on Tua's progress throughout the week with his concussion. And he does have a little bit of an ankle issue, but if his concussion, he goes through the protocol, and by let's say Friday, basically, let's say Friday, which is kind of like decision day.
Right.
If he's able to clear his concussion protocol and he's ready to go, I fully expect Tua to start and Tua to play this Sunday, which will give them a much better shot. But still, even if they get Tua, this team is also beaten and battered up. Tyreek Hill got injured last game, left the game a little bit. He looks like he's going to come make a return. But overall, I mean, linemen, offensive linemen, some DBs, they're all banged up. So in Minnesota, the way they've been playing, it looks like when you watch them, you're like, how is this team 4-1? But they do enough to get those W's, and that's what matters. I think Minnesota does the same thing here. I got the Vikings against Miami.
All right, the Cincinnati Bengals and the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans, again, it's been a rough going. We had talked about it. Joe brought it up in the before the season started. This is what we're going to be looking at, I think, for the New Orleans Saints. But then also the fact that they've got to have Taysom Hill in there playing and stuff, and not like a Jameis Winston. But Jameis wasn't doing exactly lighting it on fire either. He was back to the 30-30 type of guy. And the Bengals, seems like they're grabbing it, but now they had faced, a rival in the Ravens, where they almost had that game too. It was so close. If it's not just even for the huge leg of Justin Tucker right there, that can always just steal a game from you. But I think they really have the momentum. They have something there still. They're getting it going. And the Saints, they're in reset mode, man. They ain't there. They're not ready yet. So even though they're at home, I like the Cincinnati Bengals to take this one.
This is interesting, too. Like we talked about, the Bengals' protection, the offensive line, trying to gel together, trying to get it down pat. But they've also been hurt, too. This past week, Jonah Williams got severely hurt his knee, did not practice up to this point. So that's a little bit of a concern, losing your left tackle. T. Higgins also was another guy who left the game early last week and didn't return. He's dealing with an ankle, still hasn't practiced up to this point as well. But it looks like La'el Collins had a rest day. He's going to be able to return. He played last week, but he's another guy, still a little bit banged up. Other than that, the Bengals are pretty healthy after that. The Saints are also another team that's kind of, they got a lot of players returning to the lineup. Paulson Adebo looks like he's going to return, and I almost want to say that Jameis Winston looks to return to be the starting quarterback for them as well. He practiced limited today, so that he's trending towards playing. Ryan Remzick had a rest day. Marshawn Lattimore did not practice due to an abdomen issue, but I kind of expect him to be able to make a return. Other than that, they got a lot of guys returning. I think this game is going to be a really good game. I think it's in New Orleans. It's a hard place to play. The Bengals need another win. They need to kind of keep things, they need to keep a high morale, in other words. So they need another win here. But Joe Burrow and company, I don't know, man. This is a tough one. I'm going to go with the Saints at home because they are getting a lot of guys back. And if you notice last week, Taysom Hill, even though he's labeled as a tight end, he's still that X-factor guy for them. He's still a guy that runs the ball in the backfield. He can catch the ball as a tight end. He can throw the ball. He did a lot last week because of Winston's absence. But I look for them to continue to do that because it really puts defenses on their heels.
All right, next we got the Baltimore Ravens and the New York Giants. I'm sticking with my trend here, so then maybe it keeps the Giants winning. I am going with the Baltimore Ravens on this one. I don't have to say a whole bunch about this.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for my team.
Do it.
So everybody knows now, no matter what, when a Giants game comes up, my pick is the other team. So just to let you know ahead of time, I made my mistake when we were on that live show. I was feeling the momentum of everybody in the building.
I know
we
it's
went
tough.
for it, and then I reached.
It's tough.
But the Baltimore Ravens, again, they've looked pretty good too. But what keeps looming, though, with Lamar Jackson, and it was funny because they brought it up in the they on the other spectrum of it, they pan to him at one point. You know what they do? They do to cut during the game. They're like, oh, let's take a look at Lamar Jackson and his release or whatever this is. So they're showing the motion. Oh, that's sweet. Well, let's see what the timing of his release. Oh, he gets the ball out quick. Lamar Jackson, hey, what a great quarterback. And I'm just like, I thought they were going to show highlights about his bad footwork right there and why he was overthrowing everybody. Still not getting it there as a passer. At times he looks good, but still wide open shots.
2 of them.
Wide open ones.
2 wide open ones.
There were easy scores.
Touchdowns, yeah,
and
easy
missed
touchdowns.
them, and it brought it down to a Justin Tucker long field goal. It shouldn't have had to come down to that. If you're going to be a competing team for the championship, like the Colts or like the Ravens keep saying they are and they could be, you got to capitalize on those.
But that's the thing. What makes the Ravens the Ravens? You know what I mean?
That's so
they
Raven.
They are
Isn't that
just
a show or
they are
something?
just they are just a physical team, and they would just grind it out somehow. Lamar Jackson, he's betting on himself to play this season out and then becoming the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. It's not going to happen because for reasons why. Look at last week's tape. Look at the poor mechanics of the footwork. Look at guys that he had so wide open. And I mean so wide open where the receiver was literally had a 15-yard lead off the corner. And you don't even need to make a perfect pass. You could have done this simply what Derek Carr did Monday night when Devontae Adams ran that post and had such a big stretch. He just kind of lobbed it there. Adams had to slope just a little bit, made the catch, and then continued running. That's all he had to do was get it to him. And he tried to make it to be too perfect and ended up overthrowing him by 5 yards. So these are the plays that you need to make as a quarterback. Lamar Jackson, you have to hit your wide open targets. If you don't, you're not going to make big money like Aaron Rodgers. So I think because he keeps struggling in the passing department, it's going to keep this game really close, I feel like. And this is a game where, mind you, when the Giants had a first-round draft pick, they could have taken Lamar Jackson. They didn't have to trade up. They could have taken Lamar Jackson as their quarterback and just stayed pat because he would have fell to them. And you got to wonder if this is kind of a little extra oomph for Lamar Jackson to prove to the Giants, you should have took me instead of Danny Dimes. So I love what the Giants are doing right now. Defensively, they're on point. Offensively, they're doing what they have to do to win games. Baltimore is so physical, though, so I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one.
All right, here we go. And then you think of Wink Martindale going back to his old team to see how that defense is going to scheme up against them. You know, they might bring something to stop, Lamar Jackson. But you saw even how Cincinnati played. They had that spy on them, and I think that worked pretty well for the most part for them, too. So do they try and spy a guy on them? But do the Giants have enough players? You look at their depth chart, there is no depth to it. They should just be called the chart. Not even anything.
Chart.
The chart full of red because everybody's injured, and you got a bunch of other fill-ins for some of those guys. I mean, again, you got Daniel Jones who's playing injured, and that's it.
All right,
you
mentioned the Giants right now. Here's their injury report right now. It is Wednesday, but to your surprise, a lot of them are already practicing. So Azeez Ojulari, he has a calf. He's practicing. Tony Jefferson didn't practice still. He's still injured. Adoree Jackson practiced. Like, you're getting a lot of guys back this week. It's not too crazy. And some of the players that haven't practiced or did not practice, they're not really that important. Kenny Galladay, you're not practicing.
Kenny Galladay, not important.
It doesn't matter.
Robinson,
you can't catch anyway.
Kadarius Toney, but these guys still aren't been there. Leonard Williams still out there.
But overall, like, you're getting everyone. And Leonard Williams makes a return this week.
So
that's going to help out. So the Giants, they got a shot to go 5-1, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. I know there's going to be one of these games at the Giants where people are going to pick them and they're just going to lose, and this could be one of those games where, yes, the Giants are riding high, and I have faith in the Giants. Like, I'm starting to buy in, but it's like almost at the point where you want to buy in, but you're like, I don't know. Like, you're not blowing anybody out,
Right.
and it's always a close game. So
Yeah, that's why I take it the way I do. I just don't want to get hurt anymore, Joe. I'm just going to not buy in on it. I'm just going to stay on the outside betting against them. Because I've been hurt before.
I enjoy pain. That's why I'm a Raiders fan.
Right. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers, again, didn't look very good before with Mitch Trubisky, but now you've got Kenny in there, Pickett, and it doesn't look much better either, too, for you guys. It's struggling, and this is what we talked about at the beginning of the season, that Pittsburgh, again, hasn't finished last in this division since 1989 or something. It's coming. It's coming again. And it's going to be probably the worst. I think it's probably the worst start or worst, season for Mike Tomlin, a Mike Tomlin-led team here for the Steelers. Not enough to call for his job or anything like that. I'm sure maybe down the line some people might do it. Should he be on the hot seat?
But here's the thing.
What does he have for it?
I mean,
at this point?
I understand the stat that they have is like they've never had a losing record since Mike Tomlin's been there and all that. But they haven't really done much in the last 5 years either. They've had winning records, but they haven't really done anything in the playoffs. They haven't. They They either make the first round, get knocked out, or they don't make the playoffs. So,
the Steelers, the organization doesn't change over head coaches a lot.
Not a lot.
When their whole existence, they've had 6 or something like that.
Right. And it's insane,
isn't it?
Honestly, like that doesn't happen in today's NFL. But Pittsburgh. Kenny Pickett, they made the decision to move on from Mitch Trubisky, and now they got to live with it. And Pickett has had a little bit of success. You got to give him credit where credit's due, but he's also made some mistakes, which you have to expect as a rookie. So Pittsburgh, by no means going forward are they going to ever have an easy game. It's going to be tough. It's going to be physical. It's going to be close. Tampa Bay, this is kind of like the juggernaut to them. Like, honestly, even with Tampa Bay's injuries, even going down to a third-string center and what have you, I still got Tampa Bay in this one. It's not even close.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tampa Bay again with this one, too, just because, again, the way that defense still plays.
And honestly, think about it. T.J. Watt is still not there yet. He's delayed on coming back.
But even Tampa, they've had a rough going, too. I think Tom Brady's really happy to see this Pittsburgh team right now. Again, after especially what happened last week a little bit for him to barely come out of a win with that one. But again, if they play like they did last week, Pittsburgh might end up being winning here at home.
All I have to say is the next game that we have to pick, it's almost like
pulling teeth.
Yeah, like it's at the point where when you have Carolina Panthers or you have the LA Rams, both teams have struggled big time in the offense department. And then defensively, it's not like neither one of them have a good defense. They both have a good one, but it's like they can't seem to put everything together. So this is a tough one to pick, to be honest with you. I know they got P.J. Walker as a starter. That could actually add a nice wrinkle to that Carolina offense because he is very mobile. He could get out of harm's way and maybe take off for 10 yards or so to keep the ball rolling. Rams, jeez. Is this the game that maybe the Rams could get on point with? Can they actually put together long scoring drives in this one maybe? Could their defense apply enough pressure and kind of get back on the same page like they once were? This is a tough game. They're at home. The LA Rams are at home. Carolina has to travel. And I'm just going to say this. If the Rams can't win this one, they're done for the rest of the season. I'm just going to say that because this is a game that the Rams should absolutely win. Not only are they home, and we say home, but it's like even the Rams don't have great fans. I almost can guarantee you that the Panther fans, it'll be a 50-50 split in L.A.
That's the funny thing, though, when teams come to L.A. It's like it's a big city, big market.
It's not a sports town, though.
But it's not. You get the celebrities that are there just to be seen as celebrities at the game. That's about all you get. You don't get real fans there. You know, what you did have before in like St. Louis and stuff was the real fans. You're not getting that in LA, and that's why it's all mixed. Carolina, 32nd in offense here. Not very good, so I don't think P.J. Walker's going to help that much. I'd say they're going to try and rely. I think you're going to see a lot of Christian McCaffrey here. They got to just ball out with
I honestly think that P.J. Walker will do a better job than Baker.
Yeah, he could. I
think so.
Yeah, but again, this team against the Rams get embarrassed. We talked about it. Offensive line sucks. they are missing Whitworth. They're missing everything that they had last year. Just don't have the same type of momentum. And again, spread the ball out. Don't just go beam your eyes on Cooper Kupp. Stop going for being in love with Cooper Kupp in the long ball. Get it going. This is a good time and a good team to be able to play right now. The Rams gathering themselves up and chop out a win here.
Tyler Higbee with a big game.
Big game. Arizona Cardinals, Seattle Seahawks. Holy shit. This is gonna be tough too, man. This is gonna be a rough one here. But Seattle again, they just as Rashad Penny wins the starting gig, all of a sudden he's injured and out. So that's not good for them on their side. Geno Smith has looked good for them. That's a nice highlight for them. But again, Seattle, I think, is just...
Hold on. Alert. Hold on. Cody has woken up from a nap.
Oh,
Cody said, sorry, I legit passed out.
Oh, thanks. So we're just fucking boring. I get it.
The workday
stupid ass
must have got to me. Idiot. Just woke up with my phone on my face.
Nice. He woke up. All right, so he goes, I just passed out.
I just want to know this, Cody. Were we always on? Were you viewing us the whole time while you were sleeping?
He might have. I don't know.
I don't know.
Not sure, but
maybe it was our soothing...
Welcome back, Cody.
Yeah.
Cody is with us.
Maybe it was our soothing voices that put him to sleep.
It could be. It could be that music that's in the background that's just so nice. Here we go. But you know what woke him up is talking about the Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks, I guess, right? Gotcha. And how bad this is. But I think I'm going to go with the Cardinals on this one, Joe. Why not?
Right.
What the hell?
Yeah, I mean, they're bound to win eventually, right?
You would think you could maybe win this game.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, they're struggling still. And to be honest, it's complex. We've already kind of been over it earlier in the show, but I'm just going to talk about Seattle at this point. Seattle has been on a surprising run for the Seahawks. They Geno Smith, I mean, listen, we joked about it before the season started. I was like, oh, he's not going to do much. He's just going to throw picks. This guy's actually been playing pretty well for his history in the NFL. Has earned the job, is playing halfway decent, got some nice receivers to throw to, and Rashad Penny gone for the year. He's going to be out. That means it makes room for the rookie, Kenneth Walker III, to step up, and let's see what he can do. Seattle's very tough to play at home. This is a divisional opponent and everything. I'm going to go with Seattle on this one. I picked Seattle last week, I think, and they lost, right? I think they lost.
Yeah.
But Seattle, I think they returned to form, and they're playing home.
At home.
And it gives them some momentum there.
Here we go. We got the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs
what
here, Joe.
Should be the Sunday
night game. Yeah, absolutely. Kansas City is at home. They play rough. But again, Kansas City, I thought they were going to be good enough to be second in the division.
Yeah.
But they are still playing pretty well with the personnel they have. Patrick Mahomes, he said that he's a better quarterback without Tyreek Hill.
Gotcha.
I could say yes to an extent just because he has to learn to not just rely on him all the time. So he has to get the relationships with the other guys out there and dink and dunk and find your guys. But still, what he does have, Travis Kelce right there, who has performed, especially last week. You saw the schemes that they had just to get him open in full-out beast mode for him. That's going to be great and all, but this Buffalo Bills team, the depth is what gets this team. Despite the injuries that they had, they have so much depth that the next man has stepped up and made things happen for these guys. So they've been getting injured, but it hasn't been an excuse, and they still pour on their points. Buffalo looking to go into Kansas City and sing their redemption song. They're going to go into Kansas City. It's going to be rough. The crowd's going to be excited. They're going to do tomahawk chopping all over, but I think the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen is going to be spiking all over them, scoring some touchdowns.
So Cody replied, he goes, you guys were on the whole time. Happy I didn't sleep through it all.
There you go.
I'll be going with the Seahawks with Super Geno. to the rescue.
There he goes.
There you go.
He's with the Seahawks. Look at that.
So this game, Buffalo and Kansas City, this is going to be an amazing game.
Yeah.
I'm so psyched to watch this game. We all love these games where you got two big stud teams going at it after each other. Could be a prequel to what could happen in the playoffs down the road. Buffalo Bills, we saw them last year. I believe they played each other, right?
Yeah,
last
they
year.
did.
And that was an amazing game. Back and forth. A couple mistakes were made, which kind of ended up being the result. But the Bills at Kansas City. Kansas City is an extremely tough place to play. And I just think I like what the Bills have been doing. And I honestly think that the Bills could be the thorn in Kansas City's side, where we saw what the Raiders could do. Now, listen, the Raiders, nobody gave any kind of chance to go into Kansas City and possibly beat them or possibly have a chance even. Everybody across the board picked the Chiefs. And why wouldn't you, right? Look at what the Chiefs have been doing thus far in the season versus what the Raiders haven't been able to do. So, but the Raiders put it to them. You know, they almost could have pulled it off. Buffalo is much better than the Raiders. So I'm going to say with the matchups that the Buffalo Bills present, Von Miller off the edge to go after, Patrick Mahomes. He's not going to sit comfortably behind that offensive line. Right. I'm telling you right now, they're going to scheme up some blitzes once in a while to kind of keep them honest, keep them on their toes. But I got the Bills going into Kansas City and getting a win.
I like it too. Cody says, I'll be going with the Bills. Unlike the Raiders last week, the Bills will have their foot on the gas pedal the whole game, and I agree with them there too. They have learned from mistakes that people have done with the Patriots and things like that. Let off. Don't let off. They don't. Even if they're winning by a lot, they still put it on you and just pound the shit out of you. And they're ready just to dominate you. And that's what they're going to try to do here, but it's going to be a close game. It's going to be exciting, but you're going to see Patrick Mahomes. Let's see how special he really is and how many types of sidearm passes he's going to have to throw, because I think he's going to be chased by Von Miller and company. All right, next we've got Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. This will be just a matchup just because the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated right now. So, and playing against a division rival with the Cowboys, and they hate each other. So this is going to be a knockout, drag-out game. It's going to be close, and it's really what we're going to see from Philadelphia. Are they still going to have that strong defense? Jalen Hurts playing well. They need to make sure they keep true to the running game, too, and stay balanced, I think, is the key to this game, because, Dallas, they're going to be feeding you with the run. A lot of Tony Pollard. Look at this. We saw what he did last week, too, Joe, ripping off some big guys. And it's kind of entertaining to watch the fact that they paid all that money to Zeke and Tony Pollard. We've all been shouting it from our mics and everything else, our rooms, about how good Tony Pollard was without that big contract. And there you are.
If you remember, Tony Pollard was looking to maybe even be dealt last year because he was getting tired of sitting behind Zeke. And the fact that they paid Zeke big time money, he's like, well, I'm never going to get to be able to be a major contributor of the offense. So I want to go play somewhere. And now you look after they paid Zeke the money, you're looking at Tony Pollard, and we kind of felt that Pollard was the better back anyway. And you're starting to see that now. A lot of the football fans out there that are watching these games are like, wow, this kid can really run. This kid can really play. And he is the better back. So what do you do with Zeke at this point? I mean, you can't trade him because I think no one's going to be able to take that contract on. But he's almost like useless in a sense. Like, he's still don't get me wrong, he's still a good running back, but he's not worth that kind of money.
Right.
So now you're on the hook. He's just there, and you have to use Pollard more to actually keep your offense rolling. So it's kind of funny.
But he's still feeding himself after every run that he does.
When he gets a first down.
Is that trademarked or something? Like, he has to do that every time? Like,
he's been doing it ever since he came into the league.
It's ridiculous. I don't get it. But Cody Raptor says, very tough game. I just can't pick against the Eagles right now. I think this will be a first time we really see Cooper Rush struggle against that Philadelphia secondary. And that's what I think, too, because you look at the pass rushes on both these teams, then you look at the secondaries. It's both going to be very tough, but I think the escapability of Jalen Hurts outweighs the fact of the immobility is that a word? About Cooper Rush here. So I think I like the Philadelphia Eagles with this one at home, too. It's going to be rough. That Philly crowd is going to be pretty intense. They're going to be throwing batteries and stuff, I think, at the Cowboys.
This is going to be fun to watch because both teams are coming in pretty healthy. Like the Eagles are almost completely healthy. Like, they're coming in not only on record pace for this organization early in the season, but they're also still healthy, which has been a crutch for them. They've always kind of been battered, beaten, and bruised in past seasons to where they can't really, they don't have their starters all the time. It seems like they're kind of, kind of just limping along this season. But this year, not only are they on top, but they're also still healthy. There's a lot of optimism in Philadelphia. What could happen later on down the season? Could they win this division? Could they take it into the playoffs? Maybe even farther. In the Cowboys, they had a lot of high hopes early in the season, and then with kind of injury bug kind of biting them and inconsistent play, you look at Cooper Rush. The question is going to be out there when Dak Prescott is ready to come back. You just got to hand him the ball back, right? You can't just say, oh, well, Cooper's done so good that we're just going to leave Cooper Rush in. Dak is the guy. When he comes back, he's going to reclaim the throne, and let's see what the Cowboys can do when Dak returns. But until then, I got the Eagles at home continuing their undefeated reign for this season.
Yeah, and Cody says tough overpaying Zeke to be more of a power back than that can block, while Pollard is the one who rips off the explosive plays. That's the thing, too. It's just when you're overpaying a guy just to be your blocker.
That's what he's turned to.
But, yeah, I mean, that's why I think the difference in getting, like you said, that secondary that the Eagles have, too, is pretty scary on its own. So these teams are really cool to watch on defense. So, I mean, this could be a really close defensive game. I'm excited to watch it just for that fact. But if it could end up in a tie, I would be excited just because I am a Giants fan. So if they could tie, that would be nice.
There you go.
So there you go.
That's what you're hoping for.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the tie. There you go. Next up in Monday Night Football, we've got the Denver Broncos.
AFC West matchup again in prime time.
Chargers, Joe. Holy moly. Again, this one.
Will we see?
It's going to be garbage, but I think, I like the Chargers offense that much better. And I like what they've been able to do, even trying to get Austin Eckler more acclimated and get him a little more touches and get him out there and get him into scoring, which I like too. Getting better weekly, I think the Chargers too. Denver just reeling, not getting it together at all. Poor decision making. So let's see how this plays out. How many 4th and shorts does Brandon Staley go for, and Nathaniel Hackett totally screw up and still not be able to score, even get a field goal on that possession, right? So this is what we're going to be looking at, I think, on this one. The poor management, I think, of these teams by both coaches, but overall personnel and everything, I like the Chargers better at home.
Yeah, how could you not? I mean, the Denver Broncos have been struggling big time all the way up to this point. Russell Wilson, we don't even recognize him. I mean, former Seattle Seahawk doesn't look like the same that he used to. Not hitting his receivers when they're open unless they're running crossing routes. You got to wonder about where the direction is for Denver, especially with that big contract. And Denver's defense, even though they're good, I feel like Denver's defense is the best part of the team.
Yeah.
And they're trying to keep the Broncos offense in every game. But they just can't last forever. So Chargers are going to beat up on Denver, and I mean, usually rivalry games are close and tight. I don't know if this one will be. I got the Chargers.
There you go. He's got the Chargers. Cody says, got to go Chargers. The Broncos offense has been just bad, to be honest, and the Chargers will probably end up running away with the game. He's on board with what you're saying. So there you go. That's our picks for the week. Again, here's our record right now. We got above 500. We're above 500 now, Joe. Yeah, congratulations.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, trying to figure these games out week to week. You know, I mean, that's been the most difficult part of this season because of all the coaching changes, because of all the new schemes that are being implemented, because of the new players playing on different teams. Crazy trades have happened, and, it's crazy hysteria in the NFL. So now it looks like we're going into week 6. Looks like we're starting to figure out these teams, what they're all about, and hopefully the trend continues to keep winning.
All right, absolutely. That's it for our show tonight. Make sure you guys, if you haven't yet, follow us on YouTube. Hit the subscription button. Hit the notification bell. We'll let you know whenever we go live. Facebook, if you haven't watched us on Facebook yet, if you're a YouTuber, join us on Facebook too, because we have a Facebook group out there, Football on the No Show. Join the group. Get along in the conversations.
Also,
that we
I want to say about our group.
I
want to say about our group too. Listen, if you guys feel like you want to post, go for it. That's what this group is about. Be interactive. You can go ahead and post something about your team, or like a press conference, if you will. Like if you got a press conference about your team, and you put it out there, do it. Or if you even if you want to ask our football community about maybe a question that you want to ask and get some feedback from people. Do fantasy. It. That's what this is all about.
Too. Nobody talks fantasy so much on there anymore.
No, I mean, we used to have a couple of guys that will always talk about fantasy every week. Like I got a debate. I don't know what player to put in my starting lineup.
That's
what do you
true.
guys suggest?
Yeah.
So literally anything football related, we're here to talk about. Drop them in the comments. Post them in our group. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Again, and this week we are going to post an event that is coming up shortly in the Albany region, so you guys sit tight for that. And that's it for the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Cody, thank you for waking up and enjoying the rest of the show.
right.
We appreciate you.
See you guys
staying
next
with
week.
us, and hopefully we gave you a good lullaby. All right, see ya.
baby.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday nights for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.